Chapter 1291. Bang! The gigantic claws fiercely struck Su Yun's body, the terrifying power mixed with flames that could melt everything, smashing Su Yun downwards. However, before the prison fire unicorn's flames could spread around Su Yun's body, it was absorbed by the divine power of the imperial battle robe. He flipped in the air and disappeared once again. Formless, unstoppable, lawless. The heavenly sovereign of the immortal court drew out the talisman again. His fingers shook as he muttered to himself, activating his Tao technique. He pointed at the air, and the talisman in his hand suddenly split into two halves. At the same time, his body also split into two halves, and then the two halves of his body expanded, making up for the missing part, directly splitting into two identical heavenly sovereign of the immortal court. This was not an illusion technique clone, but a physical clone that used a physical body as a medium. This kind of clone was not like an illusion technique that did not possess any offensive capabilities. This kind of clone could not only injure people, it could even cast spells and chant. Two identical heavenly sovereign of the immortal court appeared in front of Su Yun. Su Yun did not even know who to attack. Whatever. Su Yun snorted, the sharp blade slashed out, the sword shadows were everywhere, it was almost impossible for people to dodge. Very quickly, one of the clones of the heavenly sovereign of the immortal court was devoured by the sword shadows. The sharp twin moon swords were like the claws of a death god, tearing at his flesh and skin. Very quickly, the clone turned into a bloody man, but he did not die. Instead, two pitch-black shadows shot out from his body, directly binding Su Yun's body. In that moment, it was as if someone had pressed the pause button. His entire body was unable to move at all. Su Yun opened his eyes wide. He looked at the heavenly sovereign of the immortal court in front of him, only to see him sticking a talisman on his body. The wounds on his body immediately healed at a speed visible to the naked eye, and not only the wounds, even the clothes on his body were quickly recovering. In the blink of an eye, his entire body was as good as new, without the slightest bit of damage. How troublesome! Su Yun secretly snorted, his eyebrows knitted together. But just at this moment, a ray of light shot out from behind the heavenly sovereign of the immortal court. The heavenly sovereign of the immortal court turned his head to look, only to see Qin Qianlong's body being grabbed by an old man and escaping into the distance. Oh? Attract my attention and save him? So your goal is not to kill me, but to save Qin Qianlong's lowly life? With that, the heavenly sovereign of the immortal court waved his hand, and the gigantic prison fire Qilin behind him turned into a fireball, rushing towards Xiang Yang who had saved Qin Qianlong. With that, the heavenly lord of the immortal court waved his hand. The enormous hellfire Qilin standing behind him instantly turned into a fireball and rushed towards Xiang Yang who had rescued Qin Qianlong. Seeing that, Su Yun became anxious, but he did not dare to move, because the heavenly sovereign of the immortal court was already rushing towards him. The two sky sovereigns came from the left and right, both of them striking out with their palms, one with a black palm, the other with a white palm, directly smashing towards Su Yun's chest. Their speed was originally extremely slow, but when they got close to Su Yun, they suddenly increased their speed, and when they were about to hit Su Yun, the two of them instantly disappeared. Yun, Yun, Yang bang. King, Su bang. His chest was hit by the two palms, and the divine power instantly dissipated. A strange power came from the two palms, and directly filled Su Yun's entire body, and in that moment, Su Yun felt that his immortal meridian was sticky, and all the immortal qi that passed through his immortal meridian became slow, and it was extremely uncomfortable. He looked down and saw that a Tai Chi pattern had appeared on his chest. Let me chant the demon suppression mantra and send you away. The two clones of the heavenly sovereign of the immortal court once again merged into one hand forming a seal, the other holding a horsetail whisk. The horsetail whisk landed on his arm, and a cool breeze blew past, causing his robe to flutter. Heartless and infinite, no death and no life, no yin and no yang, no earth and no sky, no blade and no blood, no evil and no good, no everything, no self, he muttered to himself, and a strange voice came out from his mouth. At the same time, his body also released a kind of strength that Su Yun had never come into contact with before. This strange strength actually wrapped around his voice, and spread out in a wave. Su Yun clenched his teeth, raised his sword and rushed forward, but after being hit by the two palms, he realized that not only had the speed of the immortal Qi decreased, even his own movement speed had slowed down. It's useless. The heavenly sovereign of the immortal court stopped talking, and stared at Su Yun, the corner of his mouth raised into a smile, and saw him quickly changing the hand seals, and finally, it turned into an orchid clasp. A black light immediately descended from the sky, shining on his body, and inside the black light, a huge white statue descended. The statue was dressed in a Taoist robe, holding a horsetail whisk and a Tao sword. It looked extremely mighty. When the statue landed, Su Yun felt that his own qi and power had instantly collapsed, and his head started to hurt, his eyes became dizzy, as though he was about to lose all his strength, but even if he wanted to move, he could not. Su Yun, if this goes on, you will die in 10 breaths of time. At this critical moment, Ling Qingyu's voice came out from the sword sheath. I know this statue seems to be attacking my soul. I'm afraid that in 10 breaths of time, my soul will collapse. Su Yun said while gasping for breath. He stared at the person in front of him. He never thought that there would be such an expert in the immortal court. Now that things had come to this, he could no longer have any scruples. He stared at the heavenly sovereign of the immortal court, and suddenly raised his hand. A large number of ferocious flying swords flew out from the sword sheath behind him. All of these flying swords blossomed with blue light, cold radiance shot out in all directions, sharp and astonishing. Every single one of these flying swords carried an irresistible sword might, flying towards the heavenly sovereign of the immortal court. Limitless sword art? The heavenly sovereign of the immortal court, who was still activating the demon-suppressing incantation, saw this move and immediately cried out. However, with his absent-mindedness, it gave Su Yun an opportunity. The countless swords that were as fast as dragons instantly smashed onto the body of the heavenly sovereign of the immortal court, directly sending him flying 1,000 miles away. His technique was blocked, his technique disappeared, and most of the abnormalities on Su Yun's body disappeared. Su Yun took advantage of the situation, and once again controlled the flying swords. The flying swords formed a huge sword array, revolving around the heavenly sovereign of the immortal court. The dense sword qi cut his body like knives. It was obviously impossible to subdue the heavenly sovereign of the immortal court with just these flying swords. He took a step forward and rushed towards the heavenly sovereign of the immortal court. As he got closer, he threw out the double moon sword in his hand. The speed of the double moon sword was not fast. While flying, Su Yun clenched his hands and grabbed 2 subordinate swords, and fiercely stabbed at the double moon sword. He did not use any qi at all, and only used his strength, layer after layer of brute force, supporting the double moon sword's body. The double moon sword's body continued to tremble, and after a few moments, the double moon sword's trembling disappeared. Seeing that, Su Yun was slightly shocked. He did not expect that the effect of the double moon sword could be produced in such a situation. The power sword was originally constantly accumulating energy on the sword's body, adding on the double moon sword's 10,000 times amplification. How terrifying was its power! But even so, Su Yun's expression was not very good. Previously, he had used the Lotus Star Sword to activate the Power Sword. Although it was extremely powerful, the Lotus Star Sword had been destroyed because of this, and the Double Moon Sword had forcefully increased its power. Forget it. In such a critical situation, Su Yun did not have much time to think. As matters stood, he could only fight with his life on the line, and could not hold back at all. Although the technique of the immortal court Empyrean had been interrupted, the effects of those two palms were still present. Swinging his arms was extremely strenuous. He forced himself to maintain his will and transfer as much of his strength as possible to the twin moon swords. The blade of the sword gradually turned red as he continued to use his strength. A row of space was shattered, and the flying swords around the double moon sword were also bounced off. Even Su Yun, who was behind him, gradually felt an irresistible fanaticism. The heavenly sovereign of the immortal court frowned, feeling that something was wrong. This sword strike was extraordinary. He could not take it head-on. However, just as he was about to retreat, the flying swords around him suddenly gathered, forcefully trapping him like a railing. Divine Talisman Soul Shock. The heavenly sovereign of the immortal court, who had maintained a calm expression, finally showed a trace of panic. He shook the talisman in his hand, and with a low shout, the talisman was torn apart, and a pitch-black shadow scuttled out from behind him, intending to forcefully open the sword prison. But the moment it was opened, the terrifying sword strike had already arrived. The heavenly sovereign of the immortal court widened his eyes, looking at this shocking scene. There was no time to dodge. Oh no! The heavenly sovereign of the immortal court finally realized that he had gone too far. This strike was enough to break through all of his defenses. Boom! The sword brought with it an unstoppable sword might, crushing everything in its path. The sword prison turned into ashes in an instant, and the heavenly sovereign of the immortal court within was also devoured. The sword might did not show any signs of stopping, and continued to rush forward with a momentum that could destroy everything, crashing into the immortal court army in the distance. The entire immortal court army seemed to have been split in half by a red-hot blade, and wherever the sword passed there was nothing left. No matter who it was, the moment they touched the sword, their bodies instantly disintegrated, and their souls scattered. This terrifying destructive power was almost indescribable. No one could stop this sword in the slightest. Even Su Yun could not. The twin moon sword tore a hole in the immortal court army, and Su Yun looked at the chaotic scene. At this moment, Kai Tian, Xiang Yang, Xing Bai, Wei Ming and the others had already arrived, and the entire immortal court army was in chaos. This heavenly sovereign of the immortal court came here to encircle Qin Qianlong, and actually brought the disciples of the immortal sects from the immortal court. Although there were many of them, it was also chaotic, and Kai Tian, Wei Ming and the others had used these immortal sects' disciples as a pretense, and took the opportunity to kill their way in. But it was not safe to stay here for long, and Su Yun immediately sent a signal for everyone to retreat. Xiang Yang was originally entangled by the Hellfire Qilin, but fortunately, with Xing Bai's help, he was temporarily fine. After the heavenly sovereign of the immortal court was killed, the Hellfire Qilin also disappeared. The immortal court army did not have the support of the Almighty, and could not resist the four sect leaders. Everyone followed the hole that the twin moon sword had torn open, and forcibly rushed out of the immortal court's encirclement. Su Yun rushed in the direction of the twin moon sword. Because it had collided with a large number of immortals, its strength had sharply decreased, and Su Yun took the opportunity to retract his hand, but just as his hand touched the twin moon sword, it was immediately scalded back by the intense heat of the sword. Hiss, such a high temperature, this temperature. I'm afraid even the holy fire devil has never had this temperature. Su Yun was shocked. If it was his other divine weapons, they would have long melted, but the twin moon sword was fine, just red all over. This spirit sword was really extraordinary. Chapter 1292. Su Yun and the rest broke out of the encirclement and ran towards the horizon. How could the immortal court let them go? However, the disciples of the immortal sects didn't dare to follow them anymore. Earlier, when Kai Tian, Wei Ming and the others arrived, they didn't have time to react at all. They thought that the enemies were only from the hidden dragon hall, But they didn't expect that they would be caught unprepared by this force that suddenly appeared. Many people were injured, and there were even quite a few who lost their lives because of this. This group of fellows that had slaughtered their way out were all vicious and merciless. Their cultivations were high, and they weren't people they could go against at all. Most of the disciples from the immortal sects had never experienced such a cruel war, and all of them were scared out of their wits. Most of the immortal court army was still chasing after Su Yun and the others, leaving only a few to clean up the mess. Some people on the scene stared at the place where the sword of force had pierced through. That was the place where the heavenly venerate of the immortal court had disappeared. The three heroes of the immortal court were famous. No one dared to believe that one of the three heroes of the immortal court had fallen just like that. Who were those people? How dare he behave atrociously in the immortal court? He had even killed one of the three prodigies of the immortal court, an immortal court heavenly lord. If they hadn't seen it with their own eyes, they wouldn't have believed it to be true. For a time, the people of the immortal sects were all in a state of panic. They began to doubt whether the immortal court, the authoritative existence in the immortal world, could truly represent the laws of the immortal court. They also began to doubt their strength. At this moment, a gust of wind blew past and 2 bolts of lightning fell from the sky, directly striking the center of the crowd. Everyone was caught off guard. Before they could react, they saw the 2 bolts of lightning dissipate. Then, 2 figures appeared in the place where the lightning disappeared. Who? When a soldier of the immortal court saw the sudden appearance of the 2 people, he hastily shouted, and a group of people surrounded them. However, just as they took a few steps closer, one of them suddenly removed the token from his waist and showed it to everyone. When everyone saw the words on the token, they were all dumbfounded. Mage God. Immortal Court's Dharma God? This person was actually a Dharma God of the immortal court? If this person was an archmage, then wouldn't the one beside him be a holy war? The sacred war between the leaders of the 3 heroes of the immortal court? Everyone immediately came to their senses and hurriedly knelt down to pay their respects. Greetings, Lord Holy War, greetings, Lord Fazhen. The people of the immortal court all looked pious and excited. When the disciples of the immortal sects heard the voice, they hurriedly looked over. When they heard that the 2 were the sacred war god and Lord Fazhen of the immortal court, they were shocked. The divine god of the immortal court was clad in a fiery red robe. Although he was a man, his long hair draped over his shoulders. His skin was as white as snow, and he looked even more delicate than a heavenly venerable. However, he was extremely petite. If he was a woman, she would definitely be a peerless beauty. He held a golden staff in his hand. The tip of the staff was like a lotus, glistening with light. He was also adorned with all sorts of accessories such as earrings, necklaces, head ornaments, jade pendants, etc. However, every single one of them was emitting a dazzling radiance. However, even though he was dressed magnificently, his eyes were tightly shut the entire time. He had never opened them. It was rumored in the celestial world that the Dharma god of the celestial court was so powerful that he could destroy the heavens. In order to limit his power, fate purposely took away his eyes. No one knew whether the rumor was true or not, but no one dared to doubt that the divine god of the celestial court could destroy the heavens. As for the sacred war god of the immortal court, he was a man clad in bright silver armor. His hair was not long, and he looked very ordinary. His body did not look sturdy, but he was tall. He did not have the mysterious feeling of an immortal court heavenly venerable, nor did he have the luxurious feeling of the divine god of the celestial court. From head to toe there was only a simple, ordinary, and indescribable sense of nature. How embarrassing, third brother. I didn't expect you to die here. TSK. The divine god of the immortal court let out a rather delicate voice. He laughed and waved his staff. The lotus on the tip of the staff suddenly bloomed, releasing waves of pale blue dust that spread in all directions. Large amounts of ripples appeared in the surrounding void. After the ripples passed through the empty space, it slowly distorted. Not long after, a dark green round hole appeared where the ripples had passed. Don't waste time. Hurry up and revive your third brother. The sacred war god suddenly spoke, his voice especially stern. The divine god of the immortal court smiled lightly and did not speak. He waved his staff a few times and the dark green round hole bloomed with bursts of intense green light. As time passed, the green light became more and more intense and blinding. When the surrounding immortals could not look at it directly, there was a whoosh and the light disappeared. Everyone hurriedly looked towards the green round hole, only to see that it had already disappeared. In its place was a completely naked man with a pale face. This man was the celestial court heavenly venerable who had disappeared earlier. It's the celestial venerable. What's going on? Is the celestial venerable not dead? What happened just now? If he's not dead, then what happened to him? Did he use some technique? The immortals were confused and could not understand. However, Lord Fazhen and the sacred war god seemed to have known about it. I underestimated the enemy. I really underestimated the enemy. I did not expect that guy to use such a terrifying technique. Fortunately, I am a Taoist, and my life is death and death is life. Before I died, I tried my best to leave behind a wisp of Tao heart kindling. As long as someone ignites this kindling, I will be able to come back to life. In this world, only second brother and eldest brother will be able to see my Tao heart kindling. I believe that guy would never have thought of this. The celestial court heavenly venerable smiled. Third brother, you were lucky this time. It won't be like this next time. Lord Fazhen smiled. Why? Is the enemy very difficult to deal with this time? Do you need me to help you? There's no need for that. I have to complete the task personally. Moreover, I only underestimated the enemy this time. Second brother and eldest brother, you don't have to worry. The celestial court heavenly venerable conjured a set of clothes and temporarily hid himself. At the same time, he said to the two of them with a serious face. All right, I was originally worried about you. That's why I came over. Since you said so, we won't ask any more questions. You must be careful and don't fall into the trap again. Lord Fazhen heaved a sigh of relief. All right. Everything must be done with all your might. No matter who your opponent is, no matter what you are facing, strong or weak, you must fight with your heart. Fight with all your might and fight with your life on the line. Don't be careless. Take this as a lesson. You must be careful next time. At this time, the sacred war who had been silent all this while suddenly spoke. The celestial venerable nodded his head and did not speak any more. Then, the sacred war stepped forward and turned into a flash of lightning, disappearing into the horizon. Lord Fazhen smiled at the celestial venerable and followed after him. The celestial venerable looked at the direction where the two of them had left for a moment. Then, he turned around and said to the celestial court army who were still cleaning up the scene, "Give me one of their corpses. I should confirm their identities." "Yes, my lord." The two men from the immortal court cupped their fists and quickly brought over a relatively complete corpse. The corpse was already dead, and its soul had dissipated. In this war, most of the people's souls were destroyed by the terrifying spells. No matter on Su Yun's side or the immortal court's side, no one's soul survived. Once a person died, his soul was extremely fragile. No matter how powerful he was when he was alive, it was the same after his death. The celestial venerable flew to the side of the corpse and pinched a few talismans on it. The talismans seemed to be messy, but in fact there was a hidden pattern. After the talismans were pasted, the celestial venerable closed his eyes and chanted a spell. With him as the center, a huge yin-yang pattern appeared. After the yin-yang pattern appeared, it rotated rapidly. Then, the celestial venerable and the corpse began to radiate light. After the light appeared, a large number of green hands stretched out from the halo and grabbed at the surrounding void. Seeing this, the immortals were confused. However, those strange hands seemed to have grabbed something. They held it tightly and then gathered inside the corpse. Then, an unexpected scene appeared. The corpse suddenly twitched twice, and then the body began to wriggle. Seeing this, the immortals at the side turned pale with fright. "What's going on? Isn't he dead?" The two celestial court army in charge of carrying the corpse hurriedly retreated in fear. They looked at the unbelievable scene in shock. The corpse slowly opened its eyes and stood up. Although the wounds on its body had not healed, it stood up for real. The man raised his hands and looked at his own body in disbelief. His eyes, which were overflowing with blood, were wide open. "Don't be surprised. Although you're dead, you're alive now." The celestial court army celestial venerable interrupted his thoughts. You can resurrect a soul?" The man trembled. "Of course I can." The heavenly sovereign of the immortal court stared into his eyes and said with a smile, "But it's just a temporary resurrection, it'll only last for half an incense stick of time. After that, your soul will disperse. But it won't disperse immediately, it will float around the corpse for a while. This is the best time for resurrection. If you don't resurrect after 3 days, then this person will never be able to come back to life again. You're very lucky. I'll give you a chance now. Answer my questions. If you can satisfy me, I can immediately summon your soul back into your body and restore your body, bringing you back to life completely instead of staying in this world for a short period of time like now. You're very lucky. I'll give you a chance now. Answer my questions, and if you can satisfy me, I can immediately summon your soul back into your body and restore your body, bringing you back to life completely instead of staying in this world for a short period of time. Although the resurrection process is rather complicated and will consume a lot of my energy, it's still within my capabilities." "You really can resurrect me?" The man almost couldn't believe it. "Of course," the celestial court army celestial venerable said confidently. The man lowered his head and pondered for a moment. Then, he suddenly looked up and asked, "What do you want to know?" Chapter 1293. I never thought that even the 3 heroes of the Immortal Court would be mobilized for this operation. The Immortal Court is serious this time. Xingbai led his troops and followed. He flew to Su Yun's side and said with lingering fear, "How are Lord Qin's injuries?" Kai Tian asked on the other side. Xingbai hesitated for a moment, then shook his head. "It's not good. His face is completely dislocated, and a large portion of his internal organs are also displaced. If not for Lord Qin's profound cultivation and powerful physical body, he would have died long ago, but fortunately, the Qi meridian is not damaged, and his cultivation is not a problem. It's just that the Immortal Court Sky Sovereign's Dao technique is too profound. Lord Qin's body is not an injury, its change seems to be innate. If we want to recover, we will definitely injure Lord Qin again. If that's the case, I can't guarantee that Lord Qin's body will still be able to survive." Hearing this voice, Kai Tian and Wei Ming both sucked in a breath of cold air. The 3 heroes of the Immortal Court are indeed extraordinary. Even Lord Qin is unable to retaliate in front of him. If we were to fight against the Lord Fazhen or the Sacred War, I'm afraid we would not be a match for them. Wei Ming said in a deep voice. When everyone heard this, they were all worried. Since the 3 heroes of the Immortal Court had already made their move, it meant that the Immortal Court would not hold back against anyone who dared to challenge them. In the past, when Su Yun fought against the Immortal Court would only send some shrimp soldiers and crab generals to fight, but now it was different. The Immortal Court had already made their move, and no longer underestimated their enemy like before. That's not what we're thinking about right now. Just then, Su Yun, who had been silent for a long time, spoke up, causing everyone to focus their gazes on him. Su Yun looked forward, his eyes suffocating, and said, Just now, the scouts reported that the immortal court sky sovereign did not die. The sacred war and the Lord Fazhen rushed over in time and revived the sky sovereign. Resurrection? How is this possible? Xingbai was shocked. Although I was far away, I clearly saw the sky sovereign being killed. How could he still be revived? Could it be that his soul is not destroyed? The heavenly sovereign cultivates the Tao, not the immortal cultivation. His Tao is not the Tao that we usually talk about. It is said that his physical body and soul are destroyed, but as long as the Tao heart fire seed is not extinguished, he can be reborn. However, none of us know how to be reborn. Since the three heroes of the immortal court are called the three heroes, there must be something extraordinary about them, said Wei Ming. Everyone was worried. With Su Yun's strength, he still had the strength to fight against one of the three heroes. If the three of them were to fight together, Su Yun's power would not be able to handle them. Su Yun glanced at them and said, "The Heavenly Master has already seen through Qin Qianlong's identity. The Hidden Dragon Hall has been blacklisted by the Immortal Court. According to the Immortal Court's means, it won't take long for the Judgment Army to attack the Hidden Dragon Hall and eradicate it completely. Now, the first thing we should do after we return is to move everything in the Hidden Dragon Hall as fast as possible. Take as much as we can and destroy everything that we can't. We can't leave it to the Immortal Court. The Immortal Realm is so big. How are we supposed to move? The Immortal Court's tracking treasure is enough to make it impossible for Lord Qin to hide. Even if he runs to the ends of the earth, he won't be able to hide from the Immortal Court." Kai Tian shook his head. "Why would I hide it from you? In the 10,000 worlds there are still places that do not belong to the Immortal Court." Su Yun said indifferently. "Make the arrangements, immediately move the people of the Hidden Dragon Hall to the True Devil Realm, and enter the Immortal Resistance Front. If it is the True Devil Realm, the Immortal Court will not act rashly. After all, the Underworld Demon Alliance has already formed. It will not be easy for them to eat the Underworld Demon Realm." Hearing this, everyone nodded their heads. "However, just arranging a Hidden Dragon Hall can't solve our worries," Su Yun said in a low voice. "In this operation we can be said to have won, but it can also be said to have failed, because we have successfully destroyed most of the resources around the Immortal Court, and the resources in the hands of the Immortal Court have been reduced by at least a quarter. Don't underestimate this quarter. For the operation of the Immortal Court, losing this quarter will have an unprecedented impact on them, and this will play an extremely important role in our fight against the Immortal Court in the future. However, there is a fatal problem with our operation this time, and that is that our identities have been exposed. It is said that the Immortal Court Sky Sovereign has the ability to defy the heavens and change fate, and revive the dead. He can use his Tao arts to temporarily reassemble the soul that has already dissipated, and can even use his Tao heart to forcefully condense the soul, and pull people back from the gates of hell. If this rumor is true, then the people who died there will probably be used by him. Although the Immortal Court's mind reading can't be used on the dead, there is no problem with the living. Hearing this, everyone was shocked. Could it be that we are all going to expose our identities? If that was the case, then everyone could only retreat from the front lines. However, once they retreated, everything that everyone had in the Immortal Court would turn into bubbles. Those mines, magical equipment, spirit wood forest, and countless other resources that they had obtained with great difficulty would all have to be given up. They could not take them away, and could only belong to the Immortal Court. Even if they entered the True Devil Realm, their strength would be greatly reduced. If they were alone, they would not be able to do anything in the empty True Devil Realm, and going to the front lines to fight against the Immortals would only increase their burden. Furthermore, if they lost the Immortal Realm, Su Yun would go from being active to passive, and it would be difficult for him to grasp the movements of the Immortal Court. No, there's still a chance to save it. Su Yun muttered to himself for a moment, then said. His words woke everyone up. What method? Master, please speak quickly. Xing Bai was a little impatient. Su Yun suddenly raised his hand, stopping the army from advancing. Everyone's eyes turned to look at Su Yun, but his face was gloomy, as though he was having an intense battle in his mind. After a moment, Su Yun turned his head and stared at Wei Ming and asked, Elder Wei Ming, are you afraid of the Immortal Court? Wei Ming was baffled by this question. Looking at Su Yun's serious expression, he knew that it was an extremely crucial moment, and there was no way out. No, he said. It was a simple word, but it declared his determination. Are you afraid of death? If I'm afraid, why would I come here? All right then, Su Yun said. The people of Great Linglong Palace follow me back. The rest of you, immediately leave the Immortal Court and evacuate all the resources of the Hidden Dragon Hall. Help the Hidden Dragon Hall enter the defensive line and wait for our news. Master, what are you going to do? Kai Tian asked carefully. But seeing Su Yun's sinister face, he said in a deep voice, Although the Heavenly Sovereign of the Immortal Court is powerful, but reviving a person is a heaven-defying method to change fate. No matter how powerful he is, he can't revive many people, there is a limit. If we turn back now, capture the people he revives, and then injure him severely, causing him to be powerless to revive again. When the Heavenly Sovereign revives people, he can only revive them not long after they died. Otherwise, why didn't the people of the Immortal Court revive? If he is powerless, then we have nothing to worry about. Master, isn't this too risky? Kai Tian was a little worried. I know it's risky. Su Yun shook his head. But it is precisely because of this that we have a chance. The people of the Immortal Court will never think that we will return, and even more so, they will never think that we will make a move on the Heavenly Sovereign again. How can they guard against such a surprise attack? All right, since Master has already decided, then we will not say anything else. Don't worry, Master, we will definitely satisfy you with the matters of the Hidden Dragon Hall. We will not leave any traces. Kai Tian cupped his fists and said, Yes. Su Yun nodded. Report. Just then, a shout came from afar, and a scout flew over anxiously, bowed to Su Yun, and said anxiously, Reporting to Master, the people of the Immortal Court have caught up. Is the leader the Heavenly Sovereign of the Immortal Court? Su Yun immediately asked. No. The scout shook his head. Since it's not the Heavenly Sovereign, then there's no need to worry. Su Yun scratched his chin, and said to Kai Tian, All of you slow down, wait for the people of the Immortal Court, and lure them away. I will go around with the people of the Great Linglong Palace, and try to stop them before the Heavenly Sovereign of the Immortal Court returns. All right. Kai Tian and Xing Bai nodded. Seeing that, Su Yun immediately waved his hand and bellowed, People of the Great Linglong Palace, follow me, quickly! After saying that, he turned around and ran back. Wei Ming took out a scroll and crushed it, causing a gust of wind to envelop all the people of the Great Linglong Palace. Like an arrow, they followed Su Yun back to the Immortal Court. There were not many people from the Great Linglong Palace this time, only 9,000 people. After experiencing the previous battles, there were still 7,000 people left. Although there were not many people from the Great Linglong Palace, they were proficient in the Great Linglong technique, so they had the advantage when fighting. No matter how strong the opponent was, when they knew what the opponent was thinking, the people from the Great Linglong Palace had already seen through everything, so they naturally would not be at a disadvantage. This was also the reason why Su Yun brought the people from the Great Linglong Palace to kill them. Su Yun stared ahead and bellowed, Wei Ming! Your subordinate is here. Wei Ming immediately replied, Pass down the order. All the people from the Great Linglong Palace are to choose a person from the Immortal Court. Do not kill him, just restrain him. Help me restrain the Sky Sovereign. Restrain the Sky Sovereign? Lord? How do I restrain the Sky Sovereign of the Immortal Court? Wei Ming was in a dilemma. Very simple. Su Yun said coldly. You only need to successfully use the Great Ling Long technique on him, and read out all the thoughts in his heart. Wei Ming was startled, but quickly understood Su Yun's meaning. Your subordinate understands. Other than that, everyone must prepare a route to escape. Once we retreat, everyone must scatter and retreat. Do not gather together, understand? Gather at the Immortal Seeking Sect in 3 days. Why? If they scattered and escaped, wouldn't they be defeated by the people from the Immortal Court? But Su Yun did not have time to explain, because they were already close to the Immortal Court. Chapter 1294. Bang! An explosion sounded from the messy resource mine outside the Immortal Court. The handsome Immortal Court Heavenly Lord was covered in blood from the explosion of the corpse in front of him. His entire body was covered in filth, and he looked especially wretched. Damn it! He sighed and used his immortal chi to get rid of the filth on his body. He shook his head and said, I forgot. Demons don't descend to become immortals, and they aren't afraid of death. It was a mistake on my part to resurrect a demon to ask questions. He really didn't expect that the demon who had just been resurrected would actually play tricks on him. While he wasn't paying attention, he directly pounced on him and self-destructed his soul and body. Although it couldn't hurt him, it made him embarrassed in front of so many immortals around him. The Heavenly Lord was naturally annoyed, but the demon was already dead, and he couldn't do anything to him. He could only smile bitterly. Find a corpse that isn't a demon. The Immortal Court Heavenly Lord's face showed a hint of exhaustion. Yes, my lord. Soon, a relatively complete corpse was carried over. The Heavenly Lord touched the corpse for a while, but couldn't find the token. He didn't know if this was someone from the Hidden Dragon Hall. Whatever. He took a deep breath, and continued to use the soul-gathering technique. Soon, the immortal was resurrected, just like the demon from before. Where is this? Didn't I die? I brought you back to life. Ah, you are. Who I am is not important. What's important is that you cooperate with me. The Immortal Court Heavenly Lord smiled lightly, and didn't interrogate like before. He waved his hand and said, Bring him back to the Immortal Court before my technique disappears. Understood. The 2 Immortal Court people immediately flew the resurrected immortal back to the Immortal Court. Clearly, the Immortal Court Heavenly Lord was going to use the mind-reading technique. As such, the interrogation might not be the truth. Wouldn't it be more convenient to use the mind-reading technique? The Immortal Court Heavenly Lord glanced around and shouted, Pack up, go back and report. As soon as he finished speaking, he flew into the air. But, not long after he flew towards the Immortal Court, a familiar baleful aura filled the air. The Empyrean frowned, a flash of surprise in his eyes. He turned his head, but as soon as he did, a cold light pierced into his eyes. So fast! Poochie! The vision of the heavenly venerate of the Immortal Court darkened, and an intense pain appeared in his eyes. He knew that his eyes had been blinded. However, he didn't scream. He just retreated several miles and closed his eyes. Blood flowed out from the corners of his eyes. He smiled and said, I didn't expect you to come back. What? Is there anything else you can't let go of? Of course. What is it? You. Me. The Heavenly Lord of the Immortal Court frowned slightly, but he soon relaxed and smiled. Interesting. It seems like you are here for me. Waves of Tao energy once again sprang up from his tightly closed eyes, and a dense aura that was like the clearest spirit spring water spiraled between his eyes. Not long after, the bloodstains at the corner of his eyes disappeared, and his tightly closed eyes also slowly opened. It had actually healed on its own. However, the moment he opened his eyes, what he saw was not Su Yun who had injured his eyes, but Wei Ming. A pair of deep, pitch-black eyes met his eyes. The Heavenly Sovereign of the Immortal Court was shocked, and hurriedly closed his eyes. Great, exquisite technique? So despicable, So you deliberately injured my eyes to create an opportunity to use the great exquisite technique on me? However, this is useless. The Sky Sovereign retreated another 100 steps, his eyes already tightly closed. As long as I keep my mind and don't let my imagination run wild, even the great exquisite technique can't do anything to me. Really? Su Yun snorted. He suddenly rushed forward, his sword tip slashing towards the Sky Sovereign's head. Although his line of sight was blocked, it did not affect the Sky Sovereign in the slightest. With his strength, he no longer needed to use his eyes to see the world. The Sky Sovereign held onto the horsetail whisk with one hand and took out a talisman with the other. He was about to form a seal, but the moment he formed the seal, a loud shout entered his ears. Be careful, he's going to use the 5 elements disintegration art to counter your technique. The 5 elements disintegration art uses fire to control water, water to control earth, earth to control wood, wood to control metal, and finally metal to control fire. It's the essence of countering and countering any killing technique. The heavenly sovereign of the immortal court was obviously affected by these words. He opened his eyes abruptly and looked towards the direction where the voice came from. He saw a man in disguise standing not far from him, looking at him with sparkling eyes. The man's eyes shone with golden light, like the moon and stars. The heavenly sovereign of the immortal court's face immediately turned ugly. Although he could guard his mind and not let his imagination run wild, if the guy in front of him attacked him, he would have no choice but to use a technique to retaliate. Once he used a technique, it was impossible for his heart to calm down. Any technique had a process of being released, and this process was commanded by the brain and his own heart. This was impossible to avoid, and once it was done, it would be seen by the opponent. Although it was only a peek at the process of the technique's execution, if he was not careful, the pros and cons of the technique would also be known by the opponent. The heavenly sovereign of the immortal court finally understood that this guy was deliberately harassing him from the side to help this person attack. They had come prepared. Interesting. He took a light breath and smiled at Su Yun. Suddenly, he held onto the horsetail whisk and rushed towards Wei Ming. That mysterious Tao power flew out like a spider's silk. He wants to kill me. Wei Ming anxiously retreated and shouted, revealing everything that he had seen in the Sky Sovereign's mind. Is it that simple? Su Yun rushed over and used the sword sheath to knock Wei Ming in, causing the Sky Sovereign to pounce into thin air. Su Yun flipped his hand and the Sky Sovereign immediately used the horsetail whisk to block. The sword and the horsetail whisk clashed, but the double moon sword's terrifying power caused the Sky Sovereign to be unable to hold the horsetail whisk steadily. He had used up a lot of his chi previously, adding that he had been killed by Su Yun once and had just revived. He was at a disadvantage against Su Yun. Su Yun also saw through this. He took the opportunity to raise his leg and fiercely kicked the Sky Sovereign's abdomen. Bang! The Sky Sovereign flew out and somersaulted in the air, trying his best to stabilize his body. However, just as he stabilized his body, he saw that the person who had disappeared earlier had appeared again, and was staring straight at him, peeking at his state of mind. So troublesome! The Celestial Venerate's face was filled with irritation, but he didn't show any signs of impatience. He took out another talisman, closed his eyes, and began to chant. A series of awkward sentences came out of his mouth. Unexpectedly, when this move was used, Wei Ming's face changed greatly. This is bad. What's wrong? Su Yun was puzzled, but in the next second, he understood. This incantation, this action, as expected. The talisman split into two and stuck to the Sky Sovereign's body. In an instant, the Sky Sovereign's body also split into two, turning into two Sky Sovereigns. These were all Sky Sovereigns formed with a physical body as a medium, and could not be called an illusion technique. Wei Ming was truly worried, because after the Sky Sovereign's clone, the effect of his great exquisite technique had clearly weakened by a lot. Furthermore, it was impossible for him to take care of both of them. If it was two people, it would be extremely difficult for Wei Ming to use the great exquisite technique again, because he could still combine the two clones into one. In this way, the effect of the great exquisite technique would be much weaker. Furthermore, it would be extremely difficult for Wei Ming to use the great exquisite technique on the immortal court sky sovereign. Don't worry. Just then, Su Yun suddenly shouted at Wei Ming. Wei Ming did not understand what he meant, but he saw Su Yun suddenly rushing towards the two sky sovereigns at an extremely fast speed. Just as the two sky sovereigns finished forming their doppelgangers, Su Yun had already closed in. He kept the dual moon sword, carried the sword sheath behind him, and rushed towards the two clones of the sky sovereign. After a burst of light, the two clones of the sky sovereign instantly disappeared. He had actually forcefully dragged the immortal court sky sovereign into the sword sheath. Wei Ming, let's go. Su Yun turned his head and bellowed, then directly entered the sword sheath and disappeared. A sword sheath fell from the sky, and Su Yun and the immortal court sky sovereign were nowhere to be seen. Wei Ming was startled for a moment, and immediately understood Su Yun's meaning. How could he dare to delay? He anxiously rushed over, grabbed the sword sheath and flew towards the horizon. The immortal court sky sovereign's side was in chaos again, and the immortal court was caught unprepared. Who would have thought that Su Yun would actually turn around and attack? The temporarily revived immortal that was taken away by the immortal court people had already been taken back. He seemed to know that he could not live for long and dispersed his body. The people of Dali Palace did not stay any longer. Seeing that Wei Ming had already left, they immediately followed Su Yun's instructions and dispersed. Not long after the people of Dali Palace had left, two bolts of lightning descended once again. The lightning receded, and two figures walked out. They were the three heroes of the immortal court, Holy War and Lord Fazhen. Third brother's scent suddenly disappeared. Damn it! He was actually attacked by the enemy. The red-robed Lord Fazhen looked around, his face somewhat gloomy. Holy War clenched his fists tightly, and did not say a word. Big brother, let's chase after them. Lord Fazhen looked at Holy War and said. The other party was already prepared, and has already dispersed. There are auras in all directions, but most of them are shrimp soldiers and crab generals. Even if we catch up, we will not be able to save third brother. We do not have third brother's resurrection technique, and if the other party commits suicide, we will not be able to do anything. This is just a waste of time. Holy War said solemnly. Are we just going to let it go like this? Lord Fazhen said unwillingly. Let it go? Of course not. Holy War took a deep breath, and his expression became sinister. Third brother's Tao power is strong, and others cannot do anything to him. Don't worry, after a period of time, he will return. When he returns, we will settle the score. At that time, no matter who it is, we will make him pay for what he has done. With that, Holy War turned and flew towards the immortal court. Chapter 1295. Inside the vast blue world of the sword sheath, three figures stood in the air, facing each other. Below them were countless sword platforms filled with divine swords, floating like clouds. These three figures were Su Yun and the immortal court Heavenly Sovereign. The two clones of the immortal court Heavenly Sovereign were close together, their movements were almost identical, their heads turned left and right, their eyes revealing an unconcealable shock. Is this the inside of the sword sheath on your back just now? Unbelievable! This is too unbelievable! Using iron as a medium to forcefully open up a huge space world, this is simply unbelievable. The immortal court Heavenly Sovereign was ecstatic. But at this moment, he suddenly smelled something, his face suddenly turned pale, he anxiously looked into the distance, as though he had discovered something, his face had a suspicious expression. This aura? Could it be? Impossible, it must be my misconception. The immortal court heavenly sovereign muttered. Su-yun, what's going on? Who is this person? A figure suddenly appeared beside Su-yun, accompanied by a clear and crisp voice. The immortal court heavenly sovereign's eyes slightly widened, looking at the devastatingly beautiful woman beside Su-yun. He was not only stunned by her appearance, he was even more shocked by her silent approach. One of the three heroes of the immortal court heavenly sovereign, Qin Yu, think of a way to seal the exit of the sword sheath. Don't let him escape for now. Su-yun said softly. Are you going to kill him? Ling Qin Yu asked. Su-yun raised his hand and glanced at his palm. The power of the demon Saint Devil's soul had already started to dissipate. Although the immortal court heavenly sovereign was not in a good state, it was still very difficult to kill him. I won't kill him. Su-yun pulled Ling Qin Yu's hand and flew backwards. Just trap him here for a period of time. Su-yun said indifferently. Yes. Ling Qin Yu nodded and followed Su-yun. Don't go. The immortal court heavenly sovereign snorted. The two clones rushed towards Su-yun. The two of them activated their techniques at the same time. A dense burst of Tao energy erupted from their bodies. However, just as he approached, a large number of flying swords suddenly appeared in front of Su-yun, transforming into a sword shield. The Sky Sovereign struck the sword shield, but was unable to break it. Here, the sword intent around Su-yun was almost endless. It was extremely dense. Everything could be used. This place was almost Su-yun's home ground. The sword shield suddenly exploded, and the sharp swords shot out in all directions. The immortal court heavenly lord was forced back. Su-yun took the chance to fly away with Ling Qin Yu. The heavenly venerables of the immortal court wanted to chase after them, but the two of them had already disappeared without a trace, leaving only a faint aura behind. The heavenly lord of the immortal court gritted his teeth and stopped in his tracks. Without a doubt, this fellow was planning to trap him here to prevent him from resurrecting the dead, allowing the experts of the immortal court to read his mind and obtain information about them. Although he was caught unprepared by the other party's actions, he wouldn't be one of the three heroes of the immortal court if he were to give in just like that. The Empyrean withdrew his clone, chuckled, and looked around. Although he did not know where Su-yun was, he believed that the two of them were hiding in the surroundings, monitoring him. I would like to see how strong this sword sheath is. As the heavenly venerables of the immortal court finished speaking, he retreated 1,000 meters, and as he retreated, he waved his hand, throwing out 1,000 talismans, and the distance between each talisman was exactly 1 meter. As the talismans were thrown out, he waved the horsetail whisk in his hand, and circles of Tao energy were released from the horsetail whisk, spreading in all directions, covering the talismans. The talismans began to squirm like worms. After about 3 breaths of time, they seemed to have been affected by some kind of power. They all rose into the air and gathered together, forming a huge talisman giant in the blink of an eye. This giant was condensed from Tao Qi, and its entire body was pasted with 1,000 talismans. Its body was huge, and its strength was astonishing. The moment it appeared, the surrounding sword discourse arena was actually forced back by it. It stepped in the air, and yin and yang fishes appeared under its feet. It looked extremely mysterious. It drove its huge body and waved its fist. The fist tip that was like a small mountain, as it danced, it released a ray of rainbow light, and smashed into the void together with the fist. Boom! The void was directly shattered, and a large amount of spatial chi splashed everywhere. The spatial fluctuations directly spread out for thousands of miles. Seeing that, Su-yun, who was in the dark, frowned and was a little restless. The heavenly venerables of the immortal court are still the heavenly venerables of the immortal court. While attacking, he can actually release the power of space. Su-yun pondered. The sword sheath was controlled by him, and in truth, Ling Qin Yu could also control it. He only found out recently, but it did not matter. It was just that the way in and out of the sword sheath was calculated based on one's own spatial energy. If the heavenly venerables of the immortal court were stronger than Su Yun's, it would not be difficult for them to forcefully break out of the sword sheath. Su Yun calculated for a while. He had to keep the heavenly venerables of the immortal court in the sword sheath for at least a day. Only then would he be able to ensure that he would not be able to revive the people of the immortal court who had died. However, delaying was only a bad plan. If he could wipe out the heavenly venerables of the immortal court, it would naturally be for the best. Without the threat of the heavenly venerables of the immortal court, it would definitely save him a lot of trouble in the future. His resurrection technique was truly a headache. Su Yun, if you let him continue like this, sooner or later, he will break through the void and leave the sword sheath. Ling Qingyu, who was at the side, said, I know. Actually, it is not difficult to stop him. It is just that I am considering how to stop him. How to stop him? I have been in the sword sheath with him for about half a day, right? Yes, it has been half a day. In half a day, we should have already left the territory of the immortal court. I should go out and take a look. Take a look? Heh, Su Yun, don't tell me you are thinking of returning to the immortal-seeking sect and gathering experts to surround the heavenly venerables of the immortal court and kill him here? Ling Qingyu suddenly said. Yes. Su Yun's eyes flashed with malevolence. If we can wipe out the heavenly venerables of the immortal court here, it will be a huge blow to the immortal court. For us, there will be countless benefit. Ling Qingyu looked at him deeply and nodded. Then you should quickly go and prepare. The strength of the heavenly venerables of the immortal court is not to be underestimated. If you delay any longer, he will break through the void and come out of the sword sheath. All right. Qingyu, help me keep an eye on him. I'll go out and take a look, Su Yun said, then turned and split open the void, flying out of the sword sheath. When Su Yun left, the heavenly venerables of the immortal court sensed something strange. They looked over, but could not see anything. His eyes turned, as if he had guessed something. He immediately increased the activation of his Tao energy, and once again unleashed a technique, attacking the void with all his might. The void trembled unceasingly, and the surging power of space swept out in all directions like a wave. The Sky Sovereign's eyes flashed with a trace of light, and the horsetail whisk in his hand bloomed like a flower. He held the horsetail whisk in one hand, and smashed it towards the place where the spatial chi was the densest. The power of the horsetail whisk collided with the power of space, causing an extremely terrifying collision. The destructive power of the collision was like a sharp knife, ruthlessly tearing apart the void. The void there had already revealed the pitch-black spatial wall. If this continued, it would shatter in less than half an incense stick of time. At that time, the Sky Sovereign would be able to forcefully leave the sword sheath. But, just as the heavenly venerables of the immortal court were celebrating, a figure suddenly appeared in front of him. The heavenly venerables of the immortal court looked at the figure. Oh. You guys are willing to come out? He smiled slightly. I thought you guys were planning to hide by the side and watch me escape. However, this figure did not say anything. Her face was expressionless, and her beautiful eyes did not seem to have any emotions. She only quietly looked at the heavenly venerables of the immortal court. This person's aura was clearly very weak, but why? Why did he have a very terrifying feeling? The pupils of the heavenly venerables of the immortal court slightly widened, and his body involuntarily took a few steps back. You. Who the hell are you? The heavenly venerables of the immortal court gasped for breath, and asked with a pale face. Do something for me. Although the figure's voice was soft, it was cold. Ridiculous. The Sky Sovereign shook his head, and a disdainful smile hung on the corner of his mouth. Although I don't know what kind of deity you are, it's not that easy to make my heavenly venerables of the immortal court submit. Furthermore, for a small fry like you to be punished by the immortal court, you want me to listen to your words. It's simply a pipe dream. Are you not willing? The voice of the figure became emotionless. What do you think? The heavenly venerable's expression became serious. At this moment, the figure in front of him suddenly raised a slender finger and pointed it directly at him. That seemingly soft finger had a kind of power that could take one's mind away. The heavenly venerables was stunned, and did not quite understand. But at this moment, a strong aura blew over from afar, and hit his body like a knife. His body trembled, and his expression changed abruptly. This aura, could it be real? His already pale face immediately overflowed with large amounts of sweat, and his pupils dilated several times. He also began to tremble. It can't be wrong. It can't be wrong. This aura, it must be the legendary sword. But why is that sword here? And how could this woman? This is impossible. I must have made a mistake. He continued to murmur, and his body began to tremble uncontrollably. The talisman giant that was formed earlier also collapsed because of the sudden instability of his aura. The expression on his face was extremely interesting, as if he had experienced a great deal of ups and downs, but in the end there was only shock and disbelief left in his eyes. The heavenly venerables suddenly raised his head, and just as he was about to speak, a black light suddenly shrouded his vision. Whoosh! The black light shot over from the horizon, and then disappeared into the horizon. Chapter 1296. Whiz! Su Yun's body flew into the sword sheath. Qin Yu, where are you? I have already instructed Wei Ming and the others to arrange everything within the time it takes for an incense stick to burn. We will first hold the Sky Sovereign back, and when they are ready, we will let the Sky Sovereign out and take the opportunity to kill him. Su Yun entered the sword sheath, looked left and right, and muttered. However, when he looked around, he could not find any trace of Ling Qinyu. Not only that, he could not even find any traces of the immortal court heavenly sovereign. Instead, he could sense some spatial ripples from afar. Qinyu! Su Yun called out again, but there was still no reply. He frowned and flew towards the place where the spatial ripples were. However, just as he got closer, the scene in front of him shocked him. At the place where the spatial ripples were, a large number of cracks had appeared. The void had already been torn apart, and there were all sorts of chaotic qi floating around. He looked around and then at the broken place, his brows tightly knitted together. The broken void would slowly recover over time, but from the looks of it, it seemed to have been caused by an extremely terrifying surging power. The immortal court Sky Sovereign ran away. Suddenly, a graceful voice floated over from the side. Su Yun turned his head to look, only to see that Ling Qinyu was standing not far behind him. Qinyu, where did you go? Su Yun asked. A look of guilt surfaced on her face as she bit her lips. I was forced to retreat by the immortal court Sky Sovereign. His strength is indeed not to be underestimated. It is not easy to keep him here. I still can't do it. Ran? Su Yun's face revealed a look of surprise. But why didn't I see him come out of the sword sheath just now? I don't know what technique he used, but he suddenly escaped, and even if I wanted to stop him, I wouldn't be able to. You didn't sense him leaving, so he must have been afraid that you had set up a trap outside, and intentionally used some technique to deceive the heavens. Ling Qinyu said. That's bad. Su Yun frowned, his face gloomy. It's so early, the soul on the battlefield has not completely dissipated. If he escapes, there will still be a chance to revive. At that time, he will bring the revived person to the immortal court to use the mind-reading technique. If that happens, our efforts will be in vain. Using this kind of heaven-defying divine ability also requires strength. The heavenly sovereign of the immortal court was able to tear open the void and escape from the sword sheath when I was caught off guard. He must have used some kind of incredible technique or magic treasure. Such a method must consume a lot of energy. Even if he escaped, he would not be able to use the resurrection technique. Su Yun, you don't have to worry about anything. Are you sure he's exhausted? Although I don't know how he ran, when the void was cut open, I sensed that his aura had become much weaker in an instant. So, I can guarantee that he won't be able to use that method again. Ling Qinyu said slowly. Hearing that, Su Yun thought for a moment, then sighed. Forget it, things have already come to this, I can only take one step at a time, since he has escaped, then I will take my time to think about it. I will arrange for some people to inquire about the situation at the Immortal Court. I hope it is as you said. The Sky Sovereign is extremely weak. This way, the powers in my hands will not be exposed. Then what do you plan to do now? For now? First, move the hidden dragon hall, and the rest of the forces should prepare to evacuate, because I do not know how much the Immortal Court knows about me, so I do not dare to act rashly. I do not want to give up everything at the Immortal Court, but if the Immortal Court does not know my identity, and I act on my own, I will confess. Do as you see fit. I can't help you much with the matters of the Immortal Court. Ling Qinyu heaved a sigh of relief, looked around and said, Quickly go and settle your things, I'm going to rest. The exhaustion on her face was obvious. Yes, it's been hard on you, Qinyu. Su Yun nodded, comforted her, then turned and left the sword sheath. Regarding the matter of the Immortal Court Sky Sovereign escaping, Su Yun actually had some doubts in his heart, but the void inside the sword sheath was indeed broken, it was not fake, but why did he not notice the Sky Sovereign leaving? After exiting the sword sheath, Wei Ming was already approaching the Immortal Seeking Sect with the sword sheath in hand. On the way, he had contacted Kai Tian, Xing Bai and the others. When they found out about Su Yun's actions, they decided to rush to the Immortal Seeking Sect to set up the arrangements. They would first trap the Immortal Court Sky Sovereign, and then wait for an opportunity to eliminate him. Even if they could not kill him, if they could cripple a portion of his cultivation, they would be able to reduce the threat the Immortal Court posed to them. The three heroes of the Immortal Court were no small matter. If they were to fight them head-on, Su Yun's side would not be their match. Unless they invited the Imperial Underworld Sword and the Fire Saint Devil, they might be able to contend against them. Master, how is it? Seeing that Su Yun came out of the sword sheath not long after entering, Wei Ming was startled, and asked, Are we going to start now? The Immortal Seeking Sect hasn't finished setting up yet. No, the plan is cancelled. The Sky Sovereign ran away. Su Yun said absent-mindedly. What? Ran away? Wei Ming was in disbelief. He glanced at the sword sheath, then looked around, and hurriedly said, Impossible, Master, this subordinate did not see the Sky Sovereign leave the treasure. The Sky Sovereign's Dao technique is boundless. If he wanted to run, you wouldn't be able to detect it. Su Yun shook his head. Don't doubt it now, send more people to keep an eye on the Immortal Court's movements. Although the Sky Sovereign ran away, his physical strength is most likely unable to keep up, and he is unable to use the resurrection technique. Those who died on the battlefield, he can't do anything about it, so we don't have to worry. Is that so? This subordinate understands. This subordinate will immediately send people to the Immortal Court to keep an eye on them. If there's any movement, report to me immediately. However, you all have to be careful, the current Immortal Court is very sensitive. Yes, on a gorgeous cloud platform, there were 3 incomparably huge statues. These 3 statues were not human statues, but 3 statues of magic tools. One statue was a horsetail whisk, one was a long rod, and the last statue was a staff. The 3 magic tool statues formed a triangular shape, standing on the cloud platform, gently floating along with the cloud platform, revolving around the huge Immortal Court. Among the 3 statues on the cloud platform, other than the horsetail whisk statue, the other 2 statues each had a person sitting cross-legged under them. They were the Holy War and Lord Fozhen. The Lord Fozhen clasped his fingers together and placed them in front of his knees. The staff floated in front of him, its entire body overflowing with a faint 7-colored light. It was extremely magical, while the holy war clenched his fists and pressed them against the ground. His eyes were closed, and his entire body emitted a molten iron aura. The three huge statues were connected by colorful light beams, forming a triangle. Between the light beams was a surging and magical power. This power was not immortal chi, nor was it divine power. It was more like a special power that lingered between two types of power. Huh? Suddenly, the holy war opened his eyes widened as he panted. The Lord Fazhen sensed that something was wrong and hurriedly stood up. Big brother, what's wrong? However, the holy war did not speak. Instead, he seemed to be thinking about something. His mouth was murmuring, but the sound that came out was not even audible to Lord Fazhen. Kacha, Walala. Just as Lord Fazhen was feeling puzzled, a strange sound suddenly came from the cloud platform. The holy war and Lord Fazhen looked towards the source of the sound, only to see that it came from the celestial venerable's horsetail whisk statue. The horsetail whisk statue was now covered with cracks, and gravel was peeling off from it. The cracks grew larger and denser, and finally, the entire statue was dismembered. The horsetail whisk statue instantly collapsed, and gravel fell to the ground. Dust flew everywhere, and it was a complete mess. This, Lord Fashion's face turned pale, and his lips trembled. Finally, he sat on the ground, supported himself with his hands, and started crying. Third brother! Third brother! The statue is connected to the natal life. If the natal life is broken, the statue will collapse. Third brother! Did he really die? The holy war gritted his teeth, and a bone-chilling murderous aura overflowed from his body. At this moment, Lord Fazhen seemed to have thought of something, and he staggered towards the pile of gravel. He crawled on the pile of gravel, and kept digging. Soon, a colorful fist-sized stone was squeezed out by him. Origin stone? Xingzhan furrowed his brows, forcefully suppressing his anger and grief as he said in a low voice, "Does the origin stone show where third brother died?" Lord Fazhen looked at the stone, and after a moment, he spread his hands weakly and said painfully, "The origin stone did not respond. It doesn't seem to have locked on to the location where third brother died. The origin stone is connected to the natal life. If it cannot lock on to the location, there is only one possibility. The other party discovered the connection in advance and killed it. The person who can see through third brother's natal life must be several times stronger than third brother. How many of such people are there in the entire immortal world? Only a handful? Big brother, do you still need to think about it? It must be those people who attacked the immortal court and challenged the dignity of the immortal court. Lord Fazhen was trembling with anger. These people have repeatedly blasphemed the immortal court, and this time they killed third brother. I will tear these people into pieces, and send their souls into the 9-death purgatory, and let them taste the pain and torture forever. We must take revenge, but now we must confirm the identity of those people. Lord Fazhen snorted. Let's return to the immortal court first, and see how the investigation is going. The people have already invaded this place. I don't believe that the investigation team has no clues. Big brother, as far as I know, there is an immortal sect called Hidden Dragon Hall that participated in the attack on the immortal court. I don't know the rest. Let's go back to the immortal court first, and if there is no news from the immortal court, we will go to Hidden Dragon Hall and settle the score with them. All right. Lord Fazhen nodded, and with a leap, his body turned into a bolt of lightning, and he struck the interior of the immortal court. Chapter 1297. When Su Yun returned to the immortal seeking sect, he sat down cross-legged and began to recuperate. Su Luluo had long received Xiang Yang's message and immediately arranged for people to head to the Hidden Dragon Hall to start the migration. Although it was a migration, the Immortal Gate was controlled by the people of the Immortal Court. If they wanted to pass through the Immortal Gate and leave the immortal world, they would need to open up a new tunnel. When he left the Immortal Court, Su Yun ordered Qin Qianlong to lead the people of the Hidden Dragon Hall to attack the Immortal Sect and leave, while the resources of the Hidden Dragon Hall were temporarily transported to the Immortal Seeking Sect. Of course, all of this needed to be done in secret, and the Hidden Dragon Hall also needed to leave the Immortal World as soon as possible. Su Yun believed that once the matters on the battlefield were settled, the Immortal Court would definitely send troops to the Hidden Dragon Hall to interrogate them. At that time, the Hidden Dragon Hall would no longer exist. Su Yun knew his current situation, since he had already taken the initiative, then he would not be able to hide it for long. If that was the case, then he should prepare early, and when he faced such a thing in the future, he would be able to face it with ease. In order to prevent such a thing from happening again, Su Yun ordered the heavens to find a place where he could move his position in time. The current immortal world was like a big cage to Su Yun, and when the Immortal Gate was controlled by the Immortal Court, once he was exposed, he would have nowhere to hide, and would be destroyed by the Immortal Court sooner or later. As a result, he needed to find a place where no one was around and open up a new base. This base had to be undetectable by the Immortal Court, so that they could safely enter. Fortunately, the size of the immortal world was beyond people's imagination. Master! While Su Yun was still cultivating with Hu Qianmei to heal his injuries, an urgent cry suddenly came from outside. Su Yun frowned and opened his eyes. He stood up and helped Hu Qianmei, who was sleeping soundly, put on his clothes, and then walked out of the house. Outside, Xiang Yang was kneeling on one knee with an anxious look on his face. Seeing Su Yun walk out, Xiang Yang anxiously shouted, "The Immortal Court army is led by the Immortal Court Holy War and the Immortal Court Magic God. They have sent 100,000 elites towards the Hidden Dragon Hall, and have requested all the forces around the Hidden Dragon Hall to attack them together. The Immortal Court has announced the crimes of the Hidden Dragon Hall 10 hours ago, and the verdict is, the entire sect, from top to bottom, not a single one will be spared." When he said the last few words, Su Yun could clearly feel Xiang Yang's mouth trembling. Su Yun thought for a moment and asked, "Does the Immortal Court only know the identity of the Hidden Dragon Hall?" No, the Immortal Court even dispatched a troop to the Carefree Palace because the Carefree Palace and the Hidden Dragon Palace are nominally allies. Plus, I'm afraid that the Immortal Court's attention will be focused on us again. Nominally, we are also related to the Carefree Palace, Xiang Yang said anxiously. Now that things have come to this, it won't be easy to deal with them. Su Yun rubbed his chin, his eyes filled with seriousness. "Sir, what should we do?" Xiang Yang panicked. "Don't worry too much," Su Yun said indifferently. "The Carefree Palace and the Immortal Seeking Sect are quite a distance away from the Immortal Court. Let me ask you, have Qin Qianlong and the others already left the Immortal Realm? He should have entered the True Devil Realm by now. Immediately send a message to the people of the True Devil Realm. Use my name to meet the True Devil Sect leader and tell them to prepare." Prepare? Yes, prepare. Once the people sent by the Immortal Court decide that the Carefree Palace is guilty, you will immediately ask them to send troops to attack the Immortal World. This way, the Immortal Court will have no time to care about the Carefree Palace, and the Carefree Palace will be able to move in before the new base is built," Su Yun said. Hearing that, Xiang Yang's eyes lit up. He immediately cupped his fists. "This subordinate understands, this subordinate will do it now. Wait. What other orders do you have, Lord?" "Go, inform Wei Ming to quickly gather the elites of the Great Ling Long Palace. In addition, gather the elites of the Immortal Seeking Sect as well. Gather here and prepare for action," Su Yun said in a deep voice. Xiang Yang was not an idiot. Seeing Su Yun's expression, he understood that Su Yun was preparing to deal with the Immortal Court again, and the truth was the same. The current Immortal Court could not fight against them head-on, so Su Yun could not save them if they went to exterminate the Hidden Dragon Hall. The only thing he could do was to disperse the immortal court's power as much as possible, causing them to be powerless, and stall for time to buy more time for Kai Tian. The mighty immortal court army was like a black dragon, flying from the direction of the immortal court to the hidden dragon hall. And the two people at the front, one was wearing armor and a feathered helmet, the other was wearing a fiery red robe, holding a luxurious magic staff. The two of them stood side by side, leading the army forward. The speed of the army was very fast. Along the way there were people crushing scrolls to speed up the army. Report. At this time, a swift figure came from the front. The armored man did not raise his head, but the robed man looked towards the source of the voice. What's wrong? The immortal court lord asked. Reporting to Lord, there is no one in the hidden dragon hall. The entire sect has been moved. The man cupped his fists and said, What? Moved? Yes, even most of the pills, equipment and other valuables have been taken away, most of the surrounding spirit mines have been destroyed. Bastard! The Lord Fazhen was furious. They moved so fast. Shenzhan looked at the Lord Fazhen and said coldly, Obviously, they knew that we would come to settle the score, so they planned to escape. They must have escaped to the immortal sect. The Lord Fazhen turned around and shouted, Turn around immediately, go to the immortal sect, and stop the people of the hidden dragon hall. There is no need to go. Just as the Lord Fazhen was about to take action, Shenzhan suddenly stopped him. Big brother. If we go now, it is already too late. They have probably left the immortal court and went straight to the immortal sect. If we go now, we will only find nothing. Then what do you think we should do now, big brother? What do you think? Shenzhan frowned and thought for a moment, then looked at the informant and asked, I heard that the Hidden Dragon Hall and the Carefree Hall are on good terms, is that true? Reporting to Lord, it is said that the two sects formed an alliance many years ago. The informant replied, Is that so? Shenzhan said, Go to the Carefree Hall to take a look. The army immediately changed direction and head towards the Carefree Hall. Yes, Lord. The army changed direction and headed towards the Carefree Hall. The sudden change of Shenzhan and Lord Fazhen was indeed surprising, but the Carefree Hall was not at ease at this moment, because the team sent by the Immortal Court had already arrived at the entrance of the Carefree Hall. Xingbai rushed over yesterday, and the team arrived today. He did not even have time to recover from his injuries. The Carefree Hall is really honored to have the guests of the Immortal Court. Lords, please come in. I will immediately ask the disciples to prepare tea and set up a banquet. Xingbai walked out from the inside with a smile. His face was full of natural expression. However, the team of people from the Immortal Court did not appreciate it at all. The leader raised his hand and said expressionlessly, Sect Leader Xing, there is no need to trouble yourself. We are not here today to drink tea. We have something to ask Sect Leader Xing. You have something to ask me? Xingbai frowned, but his expression did not change. He pretended to be puzzled and said, How can I help the Immortal Court? That person glanced at Xingbai and said seriously, Lord Xingbai, someone said that you have been living in seclusion recently. Let me ask you, where were you 3 days ago? That is a good question, Lord. You said that I have been living in seclusion recently. 3 days ago, I was not at the Carefree Hall. Where could I have been? Xingbai said with a smile. Really? That person humphed and said, Then do you know that the Hidden Dragon Hall attacked the Immortal Court 3 days ago? What? The Hidden Dragon Hall attacked the Immortal Court? Xingbai showed an extremely shocked expression, and his eyes were wide open. From his expression, even an idiot could tell that he did not know. Are you telling me that you do not know? That person humphed and said seriously, This matter has already caused a great commotion. The Hidden Dragon Hall and your Carefree Hall are in an alliance. How could you not know what they have done? What should we do? Lord! The sins of the Hidden Dragon Hall. Why did they put the blame on our Carefree Hall for no reason? Our carefree hall always strictly abides by the rules of the immortal court. We never cause any trouble and concentrate on cultivation. Lord, please investigate it clearly. Xing Bai hurriedly shouted. You don't know what happened to the Hidden Dragon Hall? That person squinted his eyes. Therefore, Hidden Dragon Palace requested to join hands with us. I agreed with them. When we attacked that spiritual mine, I fell into a herd of wild spiritual beasts and almost lost my life. Fortunately, Qin Qianlong, the head of Hidden Dragon Palace, saved me from being destroyed. In order to repay him, I gave the entire spiritual mine to him. Therefore, he proposed to join hands with us. As for what they were plotting and doing, Lord, our carefree palace really knows nothing about it. Xing Bai kept complaining and whining. Hearing this, the man from the immortal court pondered and doubted Xing Bai's words. Although Xing Bai's words were trustworthy, he did not have any evidence to accuse Xing Bai of colluding with Qin Qianlong. Seeing this, Xing Bai's heart slightly pounded. He was extremely nervous, but the more nervous he was, the worse the situation would be. Whoosh! Suddenly, a strong wind blew from afar. The crowd looked towards the horizon and saw a large number of people from the immortal court flying towards them. At the same time, 2 bolts of lightning broke through the sky and struck towards them. Xing Bai's expression changed slightly, and he was shocked. Just as he was about to say something, he heard a cold voice. Since we can't get anything out of him, use the mind-reading skill. We will know whether he is guilty or not after a test. The one who spoke was the immortal court sacred warrior. Chapter 1298. Ah, mind-reading art? Xing Bai's heart skipped a beat when he heard that. If he was being read by someone, he wouldn't be able to keep it a secret anymore. At that time, not only would Carefree Palace be in trouble, even Dali Ling Long Palace, Ba He School, and Immortal Seeking Sect would be exterminated. According to the Immortal Court's temperament, these sects would definitely be exterminated. Mind-reading art? How can I do that? My lords, although Carefree Palace is only a small sect, we still have many disciples. Moreover, I am the leader of this sect. Some of the sect's secrets can't be leaked out. Otherwise, it will be bad for me for the sect. If someone uses the mind-reading art on me, I'm afraid I won't be able to face others in the future. Xing Bai looked like he was in a difficult position. But at this time, the Immortal Court's holy war saint who was clad in a full suit of armor walked over. As soon as he appeared, everyone in the surroundings felt a suffocating pressure approaching. Xing Bai couldn't help but take 2 steps back. He felt the pressure increase. Obviously, the other party was coming for him. This lord is the leader of the 3 heroes of the Immortal Court, Lord Sacred War. The people beside him immediately introduced. Xing Bai was extremely shocked when he heard that. His eyes widened as he looked at the person in front of him. Suddenly, he sensed something and looked at the red-robed person behind him. That must be the Immortal Court's Divine Lord. Why did the Sacred War and the Divine Lord come here? What are they here for? Oh, it's Lord Sacred War. Xing Bai has been impolite. Please forgive me. I have no regrets in my life to be able to see Lord Sacred War today. Xing Bai hurriedly bowed. There's no need to be polite. Sect Master Xing, we are here to investigate the criminals. Currently, the Immortal Court has been provoked by many arrogant people. Although the Immortal Court has suffered some losses, it's not a big deal. However, we have to eliminate the people who provoked us. Otherwise, the laws of the Immortal Court will be violated. Sect Master Xing, I hope you can cooperate with us and not waste our time, the Sacred War said calmly. Hearing that, Xing Bai had a difficult expression. Lord, I also want to cooperate with you. Everything I said is true, but you don't believe me. What should I do? If you want to use mind reading, then that's really asking for too much. So what if you can read minds? You don't want to? Or do you not dare? The Holy War Saint asked calmly. The secrets of the carefree palace are all in my head. I don't want to and I don't dare to. Xingbai said bitterly. You don't want to or dare to? Are you trying to resist the immortal court? The eyes of the sacred war saint were filled with killing intent. At this moment, Xingbai's body was suddenly wrapped by a chaotic qi. He couldn't control his body and was dragged up by the qi. He kept struggling, but he couldn't get rid of the qi. Looking at the other end of the qi, he saw that the other end of the qi was connected to the immortal court's Dharma god. Big brother, let's not waste any more time. Just use the mind-reading art. Even if this person didn't participate in the matter of provoking our immortal court, I'm afraid that he must have known about it. If we use the mind-reading art on him, we might be able to find out something. The Dharma god of the immortal court snorted. Jieshan didn't say anything. He just looked at Xingbai. His majestic eyes seemed to be able to see through Xingbai. Xingbai's body quivered and his expression turned ugly. If the people of the immortal court really wanted to use the mind-reading art on him, he wouldn't be able to resist and could only accept it obediently. My lord, my lord, are you trying to force me to my death? Xingbai was at his wits' end. What do you mean by that? If the immortal court wants you to cooperate obediently, how can you call that forcing? Lord Fazhen snorted coldly. Xingbai opened his mouth, but he didn't know how to refute. Do it. At this moment Jieshan spoke. His words were like a death sentence for Xingbai. Two people of the immortal court walked forward and held Xingbai down. Among the people of the immortal court, a man in a white robe walked out and held a huge pearl in his hand. The man glanced at Xingbai and walked to him. He closed his eyes and pressed his hand on Xingbai's chest. He started to use the mind-reading art that was unique to the immortal court. Xingbai's face was full of sweat. His eyes widened as he stared at the man's every move. His body couldn't help but tremble. What should I do? What should I do? What should I do? Xingbai gritted his teeth. He was in a panic. My lord! At this critical moment, a hurried shout was heard from afar. Everyone's attention was attracted by the shout. They hastily looked towards the source of the voice, and saw a man of the immortal court running towards them in a disheveled manner. His body was full of scars, as if he had just gone through a fierce battle. What happened? Jieshan sensed that something was wrong and immediately asked. My lord, Qiyun Mountain was attacked by thieves. A large number of people of the immortal court were killed. Our mineral vein was occupied by them. That person hurriedly shouted. What? Qiyun Mountain? Lord Fazhen shouted. He rushed over and pressed on that person's shoulder. He said anxiously, Who is so audacious to invade the immortal court's territory? It should be those who attacked the immortal court, that person said in a trembling voice. Bastard! Lord Fazhen was furious. Although Cloud Bridge Mountain is extremely far away from the immortal court, it's a huge mine that provides the immortal court with a large amount of water heart stones every year, giving them an inexhaustible supply of materials. If this place is lost, the immortal court's resource chain will suffer another blow. Saint War sneered and said solemnly, Those fellows should be eyeing the resources of the immortal court. Although this Qiyun Mountain is extremely far from the immortal court, it is very close to here. They should not know that we are in the carefree palace. Second brother, let's go. We will support Qiyun Mountain immediately. All right. Lord Fazhen nodded. Just as he was about to leave, he turned back to look at Xingbai and asked, Big brother, what should we do with that person? Him? Jieshan glanced at Xingbai and snorted. If he runs away, it means that he confessed. Although the immortal world is huge, it is under our control. He can't run away. If he doesn't run, what is there to worry about? That's true. Lord Fazhen nodded and rushed towards Qiyun Mountain with Jieshan. The people of the immortal court followed behind. Seeing that the people of the immortal court had left, Xingbai heaved a sigh of relief. However, just as they left, a figure suddenly appeared from the side. Xingbai was startled. He looked over and realized that it was Su Yun. "Master," Xingbai said happily. "Swallow this." Su Yun took out a pill from his space bag and gave it to Xingbai. Xingbai was startled. Looking at the pill, it was completely white and emitted a sweet fragrance. He did not know what it was. "Master, what is this?" "This is a pill that I ordered Wei Ming to refine for you. It can temporarily tamper with your memories and temporarily change the state of your memories. After you consume this pill, you will not be afraid of the immortal court's mind-reading technique. Once the time passes, the pill's effects will automatically disappear. You can use this to deal with the people of the immortal court." Su Yun said. "This pill?" Only then did Xingbai remember that Wei Ming was proficient in the Great Exquisite Technique. Compared to the mind-reading technique, the Great Exquisite Technique was an even higher-level existence. Back then, it was also because of Wei Ming's help that he was able to prevent the people of the immortal court from using the mind-reading technique on him. Now that he had personally refined a pill, it was naturally easy for him to avoid the mind-reading technique of the people of the immortal court. "Thank you, Master." Xingbai nodded and immediately took the pill. He was about to swallow it, but just as the pill was about to enter his mouth, he could not help but ask, "Master, was it Wei Ming and the others who made the Qiyun Mountain mine?" "Yes." Su Yun nodded his head. "We had already received the news and guessed that Jieshan and Lord Fa Zhen would come to your place, so we had already made preparations. Right now, Qiyun Mountain's people should have already withdrawn, and Jieshan and Lord Fa Zhen will only come empty-handed." "Oh, that's good. Xingbai, for the time being, stay in the sect and don't go out. I believe that even if you can hide from the mind-reading technique this time, the immortal court will not lower their suspicions towards you." With that, Su Yun turned and left. Xingbai responded and directly swallowed the pill into his stomach. After Su Yun left, he naturally headed towards the direction of Qiyun Mountain. If he moved alone, it would be easy for him to hide. The speed of the people from the immortal court was naturally not fast. When he arrived at the surroundings of Qiyun Mountain, the people from the immortal court had already entered Qiyun Mountain. At this moment, Qiyun Mountain's defensive line had long since been completely destroyed by Wei Ming and the others, but Qiyun Mountain's resources had not been destroyed in time. In fact, this place was the closest to Su Yun's power, and if he wanted to destroy the resources, Su Yun would first choose this place, but he considered that once he attacked this place, the immortal court would shift their focus to the surrounding powers, which was not a good thing for Su Yun. Furthermore, he also wanted to surround the place and attack the reinforcements, so he did not touch this place. Su Yun had rushed here for the immortal court Sky Sovereign. Although he did not know the abilities of the Holy War and the Lord Fa Zhen, the resurrection technique of the immortal court Sky Sovereign was a huge problem. If Su Yun did not want his identity to be exposed, he had to get rid of the Sky Sovereign. However, when he came here to patrol, he did not see any trace of the Sky Sovereign. Could it be that he had consumed too much energy last time and was still healing? Su Yun muttered in his heart. Wei Ming and the others had retreated in time. They had only defeated the guards here and quickly retreated. When they left, they had even used spells to increase their speed. By the time the Holy War Saint and the others had caught up, they had already disappeared. Seeing that, Su Yun also quietly retreated. At this moment, on Qiyun Mountain, the Holy War swept his gaze across the mines that had fallen into the vast sea of clouds. His eyes were filled with uncontrollable anger. The mines were filled with people lying on the ground and wailing in pain. He instantly landed on a person who was groaning in pain while hugging his wound. He grabbed him and shouted angrily, "Where is he? Who is it?" The man had yet to react as he spoke with a trembling voice. "Where are the people who attacked you? Those rascals. Those thieves. His voice was almost squeezed out from between his teeth. Those devil cultivators. They escaped. That person seemed to have recognized who this person was, and his trembling became even more intense. Ran away? Enraged, the holy war threw the man to the ground. He did not pay attention to his strength and threw the man into pieces, causing him to die immediately. The people of the immortal court at the side were terrified. Big brother, their smell is still there. If we follow the smell, we will definitely be able to catch up to them. The Lord Fazhen flew over and said anxiously, "No need." The holy war snorted, "Let's go back first and find Xing Bai." "All right." Chapter 1299. Inside the Carefree Hall. Sacred Warrior and Lord Fazhen sat in their chairs and stared at the white-robed man who was holding a pearl in his hand. The man had one hand on Xing Bai's chest, and a lustrous halo flowed from his palm into Xing Bai's chest. Xing Bai took a deep breath and closed his eyes, as if he had fallen into some kind of meditation. The people of the Carefree Hall looked at Xing Bai anxiously. After some time, the man in the white robe moved his hand away from the man's chest, stopped the spell, and opened his eyes. "How is it?" Lord Fazhen asked. However, the man shook his head and said, "My lord, Sect Master Xing did not know about the attack on the Immortal Court and did not participate in it. What has he been doing during this period of time?" Lord Fazhen asked again. "He is cultivating in the Carefree Hall." Lord Fazhen frowned when he heard this and his expression turned ugly. Xing Bai took 2 steps back and his face turned pale. The people of the Carefree Hall rushed forward to support him. Lord Fazhen waved his hand to indicate that there was no need. He then looked at the people of the Immortal Court and said, "My lords, is there anything else? If you think that Xing Bai is related to this matter, Xing Bai is still willing to be tested by the Immortal Court to prove his innocence." He said this righteously. Lord Fazhen's brows twitched. He was obviously unhappy. Lord Fazhen suppressed his emotions and stood up. He said, "Since Sect Master Xing has nothing to do with this matter, that's for the best. Recently, the Immortal Court has been in turmoil and the demons have reappeared. Since Sect Master Xing is from the Immortal World, you should take the peace of the Immortal World as your responsibility and do your best to serve the Immortal Court. All right, I shall not stay any longer. If there is any news of the demons, I hope that you can inform me as soon as possible." Then, Lord Fazhen turned and left. Lord Fazhen followed behind him. "Goodbye, my lord." Xing Bai cupped his fists and walked out. After Lord Fazhen and Lord Fazhen left, Xing Bai did not say anything. After about half an hour, his body emitted a large amount of smoke. His body twitched a few times, and he seemed to have regained his senses. The effect of this pill is indeed amazing. The Immortal Court's mind-reading technique couldn't detect anything strange at all. Even Sacred War and Lord Fazhen couldn't detect anything strange. My lord is indeed powerful. After Xing Bai recovered his memory, he could not help but sigh. "Sect leader, what should we do now?" A high-ranking member of the Carefree Palace walked over and asked carefully. "Everything will be as usual, but we need to reduce the number of disciples going out to avoid unnecessary complications," Xing Bai said. "Yes. Go and do your work." Xing Bai exhaled, turned around, and walked into the house. Sacred War and Lord Fazhen were speechless as they left the Freedom Hall. The 100,000 soldiers of the Immortal Court were confused. Lord Fazhen glanced at the Immortal Court army behind him and opened his mouth. In the end, he couldn't help but speak. "Big brother, I didn't expect that we would still end up empty-handed. I'm afraid those people have been guarding against us for a long time." "Take precautions? Of course, it's to guard against us. They're in the dark and we're in the light. We have to be slower than them in everything we do. They don't dare to be enemies with us, otherwise, they wouldn't be hiding from us like this," Xing Zhan said solemnly. Then what should we do now? Are we going back to the immortal court empty-handed? Lord Fozhen tightened his grip on his wand, but the anger in his eyes did not diminish. If we go back like this, we won't be able to take revenge for third brother, and we'll be laughed at by those fellows from the immortal court. I'm afraid we'll lose a lot of face. Do you still care about your face at this time? Sacred War snorted. He turned around and shouted at the countless immortal court army behind him, Li Hao! Yes, Lord. An immortal flew forward and cupped his fists. Saint War glanced at him and said solemnly, Bring them back to the immortal court and report to the higher-ups that the people of Hidden Dragon Hall have already evacuated from the immortal gate. Let the higher-ups strengthen their control over the immortal gate. Yes, but, Lord, what about the rest of you? Li Hao asked carefully. We'll continue to investigate those rascals. Sacred War said, Go back and tell the other lords that when Lord Fozhen and I return, we'll definitely bring back the souls of those rascals. Go quickly! Sacred War shouted, leaving no room for resistance. Li Hao trembled and quickly cupped his fists. He then led the 100,000 Immortal Court army towards the Immortal Court. Sacred War and Lord Fozhen continued to fly forward. Big brother, where should we go now? Lord Fozhen asked. Sacred War thought for a moment and said, Let's go to the Hidden Dragon Hall and see if there are any clues. All right. Lord Fozhen nodded and did not say anything else. Both of them were extremely fast, and in the blink of an eye, they had traveled thousands of miles. But just as Sacred War and Lord Fozhen were about to attack the Hidden Dragon Hall, Sacred War suddenly stopped. Lord Fozhen was stunned and quickly stopped. He saw Sacred War lowering his head and floating on the ground as if he was thinking about something. Lord Fozhen was puzzled and quickly flew over. He asked, Big brother, what's wrong? No, Sacred War ignored Lord Fozhen and muttered something with a strange expression on his face. Lord Fozhen was even more puzzled and called out, Big brother! Sacred War suddenly raised his head and stared at Lord Fozhen. We may have fallen into a trap. Trap? Lord Fozhen was shocked. Big brother, what trap? Why are those thieves attacking Qi Yunshan? Sacred War frowned and asked. Of course they want to destroy the resources of the Immortal Lyceum. Destroy the resources of the Immortal Lyceum. Sacred War snorted. Then, do you see that they want to destroy the mine of Qi Yunshan? Lord Fozhen thought for a moment and his eyes wavered. Big brother, what do you mean? Do you still not understand? Think about Qi Yunshan's position. He is right in between the Hidden Dragon Hall and the Carefree Palace. When we left for the Hidden Dragon Hall, Qi Yunshan was still safe and sound. However, when we left the Hidden Dragon Hall and went to the Carefree Palace, something happened to Qi Yunshan. What does this mean? This means that our actions have long been monitored by the other party. In order to lure us away, the other party deliberately attacked Qi Yunshan. Their purpose is to lure us away from the Carefree Palace and support Qi Yunshan. Sacred War said in a low voice. Lord Fozhen frowned and shook his head. Big brother, although your suspicions are somewhat reasonable, what is their motive for doing this? Xingbai did not escape. Moreover, he has been tested by the mind-reading technique. If it is really as you said, the other party has no reason to do so. But all of this is too strange. Sacred War did not seem to have reduced his suspicions. Although the mind-reading technique is powerful, it does not mean that there is no way to break it. Perhaps Xingbai has a way to make the mind-reading technique ineffective. How is that possible? Lord Fozhen obviously did not believe it. No matter what, let's go back and take a look first. If Xingbai is really innocent, our trip will be meaningless. With that, Sacred War turned around and ran back to the Carefree Palace. Lord Fozhen followed behind helplessly. Lord Fozhen did not know why Sacred War was so obsessed with the Carefree Palace. Was it because the Carefree Palace was in an alliance with the Hidden Dragon Hall? This time, the two of them did not bring along the mighty immortal Lyceum army. Hence, their speed was extremely fast. When Xingbai returned to the Carefree Hall's front door, he was startled. He did not expect that these two gods of death would return. At that moment, the effect of the pill had already disappeared. If the other party used the mind-reading technique again, he would not be able to deceive them. After receiving the report, Xingbai immediately rushed to the entrance. However, before he could welcome them, Sacred War and Lord Fazhen had already walked in with large strides. "Ah, the two of you have returned. Is there anything else you would like to instruct me about?" Xingbai asked carefully. Sacred War and Lord Fazhen walked in front of him. The two of them were taller and looked down at Xingbai. Although Xingbai was also a burly man, he was not used to being stared at by two immortal Lyceum experts. Sacred War stared at him with a dignified gaze. After a while, he said, "Sect leader Xing, do you still want to quibble?" "Quibble?" Xingbai was confused. "What quibble? My lord, I really don't understand what you are saying." "Humph, are you still trying to fool me?" Sacred War suddenly released his aura and stared coldly at Xingbai. His voice was as sharp as a sword. "The moment we arrived at the Carefree Palace, Qi Yunshan was attacked. Is this a coincidence? Although the mind-reading technique can't detect anything, I believe that you must be in cahoots with those rascals. Quickly admit it." Xingbai was suffocated by Sacred War's aura and he almost knelt on the ground. He struggled to support himself. He gritted his teeth and said, "My lord, what are you talking about? I really didn't. There is no evidence." "My lord, why are you so sure that There is no need for evidence. My intuition tells me that you are guilty." "My lord, if you don't tell me the truth today, I will destroy the Carefree Palace." Xingzhan let out a low roar and suddenly stamped his foot. The surrounding houses were all turned into dust and instantly shattered. The surrounding people of Carefree Palace couldn't withstand the force of the impact and were all knocked to the ground. Those with weaker cultivations directly vomited blood. Lord Fazhen did not say anything and watched everything quietly. The disaster of the Carefree Palace did not seem to be over. Xingbai stared at Sacred War. He knew that the guy in front of him had no intention of letting him go. He suddenly smiled. At this moment, he did not seem to know what fear was. He said frankly, "Haha, Lord Sacred War, the evidence is useless to you now, right? Just because the Carefree Palace and the Hidden Dragon Hall have formed an alliance, you want to destroy me. Do you hate the Hidden Dragon Hall and the Demon Dwellers so much?" Sacred War stared at him for a moment and snorted. "So what if I do? I don't think you hate them. You just want to vent your anger. You want to kill." Xingbai suddenly said. Sacred War's eyes widened, but he did not speak. There was a trace of impatience on his face. He was about to take action and capture Xingbai. However, just as he was about to take action, a powerful force suddenly surged in from outside the Carefree Palace. Sacred War and Lord Fazhen froze at the same time. Both of them turned around and looked outside the sect. Chapter 1300. This aura? Suddenly, Xingzhan's face lit up with joy. Like a whirlwind, he dashed out. "Big brother!" Lord Fazhen hurried to catch up. The two of them dashed out of the sect like lightning. Xingbai was confused. Why did the two of them suddenly want to leave? Didn't they want to kill him? However, at that moment, Xingbai seemed to have smelled something. He looked outside and suspiciously stood up. "Sect leader, are you all right?" A large number of people from Carefree Hall rushed over. When they saw the messy scene, they were all dumbfounded. "I'm fine," Xingbai said. He scanned the surroundings and said solemnly, "Everyone, be on guard. Everyone, prepare to fight to the death." "Yes." The people from Carefree Hall shouted in unison. "Go and get ready. I'll go out and take a look." Xingbai said as he led the two disciples out of the sect. This aura was somewhat familiar. However, his cultivation was not as high as Xingzhan and Lord Fazhen, so he could not sense this aura clearly. After flying out of the sect, he could vaguely see Xingzhan and Lord Fazhen in the distance. At this moment, they were standing high up in the clouds, looking into the distance. The two of them did not move forward, but their expressions were particularly interesting. Lord Fazhen's mouth was slightly agape. His eyes were wide open and his hand that was holding onto the magic staff was somewhat unstable. On the other hand, Xingzhan's face was solemn. Although it was the first time he had seen Xingzhan, he had never seen Xingzhan's eyes so serious. What concerned Xingbai was that Xingzhan had already taken out his weapon. It was a long staff that was entirely red in color. There was a small dragon spirit spiraling on the staff. It was very mighty. They looked like they were preparing for a big battle. What was going on? Xingbai did not dare to go near Xingzhan and Lord Fazhen. He could only fly up and leap over the thick clouds that blocked his view. However, the moment he leaped over the thick clouds, the scene in front of him completely shocked him. In front of him was an empty sky. However, in the horizon, there were a large number of black figures. These black figures were incomparably dense, and they were like rays of light that shot towards him. Thick demon chi was mixed with a cool breeze as it blew towards him. Those were demon dwellers. Countless demon dwellers. Tens of thousands of demon dwellers. Their speed was very fast and their scale was huge, but it did not seem chaotic. Everyone did not forget their position and followed the troops forward. Not long after, the majestic army approached the carefree palace. The mighty army formed a half-moon shape and completely surrounded the sacred warrior and the Lord Fazhen. The thick demonic aura dyed the sky black. Xingbai's eyes widened as he looked at these people. He had seen most of them before. 8 Unity School, Dali Palace, and Immortal Seeking Sect. There were no less than 800,000 people. Almost all the people from the 3 sects had come. What was going on? Xingbai was completely confused. At this moment, a person in a black robe flew out from the vast army. This person held a sword in one hand and carried a huge sword case on his back. His face was covered by a cloak, making it difficult to see clearly. However, within the haze, a pair of blood-red eyes could be faintly seen. It was Su Yun. He flew straight to the front of the sacred warrior and the Lord Fazhen. Facing the famous 3 heroes of the immortal court, he did not have the slightest bit of fear. Xingbai was not an idiot. Seeing this, he finally understood and immediately turned his head to pass down the order. Very quickly, all the elites of the carefree palace rushed out and blocked the back of the sacred warrior and the Lord Fazhen. The encirclement of the half-moon armor was now completely circular. The sacred warrior tilted his head slightly and looked behind him, then looked at the people in front of him and snorted coldly. "I didn't expect you to bring such a big gift to see me. How could I dare to be careless with the 3 heroes of the immortal court?" Su Yun said indifferently and casually waved his hand. The vast crowd of 1,000,000 people immediately raised their long blades and pulled out their cold swords. The blades were all aimed at the 2 of them. The killing intent was like a flood that drowned the 2 of them. Su Yun had been monitoring the sacred warrior and the Lord Fazhen. Their every move was under Su Yun's attention. If the 2 of them did not leave the area, he would not be at ease. However, when the sacred warrior decided to return to the carefree palace and question Xingbai again, Su Yun understood that just by relying on the mind-reading technique, he would not be able to make the sacred warrior feel relieved. If the carefree palace was destroyed, Su Yun would not be able to stabilize his footing in the immortal court with just the 3 remaining forces. Therefore, he had to protect Xingbai, and the only way to protect Xingbai was not to escape, because he could not escape anymore. Since he could not escape, he could only choose to face it. Feeling the surging killing intent around him, the sacred warrior said coldly, You want to kill me here? Do you think I can't do it? Using nearly 1,000,000 people to deal with us, we really have a lot of face. However, the Lord Fozhen and I have long reached the peak of the Spirit Profound God realm, and most of the people here are at the Spirit Profound Immortal realm. Even if they reach the Spirit Profound God realm, they are only at the early stage. In front of me, they are like ants. Do you think that 1,000,000 ants can pose a threat to an agile person? The sacred warrior snorted. Su Yun raised his eyebrows. You've fought 1,000,000 ants before. There's no need to fight. Just imagine it and you'll know the result. I think it's still necessary to put it into practice. Su Yun snapped his fingers. In an instant, a large amount of dazzling lights shot out from the crowd. These lights were multicolored and filled the sky like a rainbow. A large number of strange arrays exploded in the crowd, and even more light beams shot towards the sacred warrior and the Lord Fozhen. They were densely packed in all directions, and no one could dodge them. The sacred warrior and the Lord Fozhen were both hit by the light beam, but the light beam did not cause much damage to them. It only made their bodies feel uncomfortable, and they felt as if a layer of frost had condensed on their bodies, and their movements became stiff. If it was just a light beam, it would not have any effect at all. With their strength, it would be too easy to ignore this kind of light beam, but there were too many light beams around them, and they were layered on top of each other. Crash! At this time, there were countless dark red spells. These spells were like a spider web, hitting their bodies, dyeing their armor and robes dark red. With the spells on their bodies, their movements became slow again, as if something was stuck to their bodies. After this spell, a large cloud of gray mist blew over and enveloped the entire sky. It's a force field spell. The sacred warrior frowned and turned to look at the Lord Fozhen, only to see that he was not feeling well at the moment. The force field spell released by more than 100,000 immortals was so powerful that he felt as if there was a mountain pressing down on his shoulders. This guy brought so many people here. Is he using them to restrain us? Unfortunately, he made a wrong calculation. The sacred warrior said coldly, "Second brother, there are so many people. It's time for you to perform. Let me protect you." After saying that, he waved the long staff in his hand, and the dragon spirit on the staff flew out and revolved around the two of them. The dragon spirit sprinkled a large amount of golden dust, which floated around the two of them and turned into a shining cover. Once the cover was formed, the Lord Fashion's face immediately became much better. The corner of his mouth curled up in a smile, and he raised the staff high. He started chanting and closed his eyes. The immortal court's Lord Fozhen was said to be a peerless immortal who had mastered the power of the 5 elements. His use of immortal qi had reached the point of perfection. It was said that he could clearly feel the existence of profound qi since he was born. It was as if he had been blessed by the heavens. In less than 10,000 years, he had advanced from an ordinary person to a profound spirit god. His methods were known for their astonishing destructive power, especially in the face of such a dense army. Xing Bai's lips trembled when he saw the immortal court's Lord Fozhen casting his spell. If the immortal court's Lord Fozhen were to successfully use an immortal technique, many people would die. In fact, Su Yun also knew this. Therefore, the moment the Lord Fozhen moved, he also moved. Humph! The sacred warrior's eyes narrowed as he raised his long staff to meet Su Yun. "Don't even think about getting close to my second brother." "Is that so?" Su Yun's cold voice came out, and suddenly, his eyes shot out 2 mysterious forces. His pupils were like flowers, constantly rotating. Great exquisite technique? The sacred warrior was shocked. This guy actually knew the great exquisite technique? Not good. He was caught off guard and was actually hit by Su Yun's great exquisite technique. His state of mind was immediately seen through by Su Yun. He hurriedly guarded his mind, but it was too late. he saw Su Yun's sword strike towards his leg. Su Yun, who had a complete understanding of his state of mind, already understood the flaws in his every movement and every posture. The sacred warrior hurriedly changed his body and raised his staff to block. The long staff swept out with a tremendous amount of brute force. Just as it was about to hit Su Yun's sharp double moon sword, he suddenly disappeared. Without any hesitation, Holy War punched Lord Fazhen with the back of his hand, splitting heaven and earth. He roared and a golden lightning burst out from his fist, smashing through the void. With an unstoppable and terrifying force, he collided with the Lord Fazhen. Or rather, he collided with Su Yun, who had leaped over him at an extremely high speed to attack the Lord Fazhen. The sacred warrior was the leader of the three heroes of the Immortal Court. The war god of the Immortal Court was recognized as the pinnacle of martial arts in the immortal world. Although he was restrained by the great exquisite technique, he was able to judge Su Yun's intentions and movements in such a short time. It was truly admirable. However, he had overlooked one point. Bang! Su Yun took the full brunt of the attack. The lightning struck his abdomen, but because of the impact, he still crashed into the Lord Fazhen. Boom! The Lord Fazhen, who was still casting the technique, was forcibly knocked away by Su Yun and flew out of the protective barrier that the sacred warrior had cast before the sacred warrior. At the same time, millions of people in all directions raised their swords and hands high up, accumulating immortal technique. Everyone only had one goal. That was the Lord Fazhen of the Immortal Court, who was knocked out of the protective barrier by Su Yun. Not good. The sacred warrior's eyes widened as he looked at the shocking scene. This person actually used himself as bait. Chapter 1301. Ruthless. Truly ruthless. Not only did this guy see through my thoughts, he even calculated the subsequent steps in detail. Jiao Zhan took a deep breath. He wanted to save Lord Fazhen, but it was too late. Countless spells rained down on Lord Fazhen. He was like a blade of grass in a heavy rain, unable to dodge. Lord Fazhen's pupils constricted as he looked at the terrifying spells around him. He was terrified. Those with high cultivation could indeed look down on those with low cultivation like ant. The difference in cultivation between Lord Fazhen and the surrounding immortals and devil cultivators was too great. He was like the heavens and these people were like the earth. He could really ignore the attacks of everyone here, but he did not dare to ignore the attacks of everyone here. Dripping water could wear through a stone, and an iron rod could grind a needle. Nothing in this world was absolute. There was no such thing as invincibility, and there was no such thing as absolute fragility. When an existence that you didn't care about reached a certain number, the destructive power it displayed would also change. This was a qualitative change, and this was the situation that Lord Fazhen was facing. However, just as the terrifying and dense spells were about to hit his body, a large amount of blue light suddenly shot out from his body, and he suddenly disappeared. When he reappeared, he was already 10 miles away, just in time to avoid the dense spells. The spells converged at one point and produced a violent explosion. Like a mushroom cloud, it bloomed in the vast sky. After all, he was a Lord Fazhen. He forcefully interrupted the spells and used teleportation to escape danger. This kind of reaction was not something that an ordinary immortal could have. However, Su Yun's attack was not over yet. When Lord Fazhen had just teleported to a safe position, he did not even have time to heave a sigh of relief when he felt a pain in his chest. The chi in his body became chaotic, and he spat out a mouthful of dark red blood. Lord Fazhen was stunned. He looked down and saw a cold sword piercing through his chest from behind. He widened his eyes, and the bloody glow reflected by the cold sword edge stung his pupils. "How is this possible?" A weak voice came out. Saint War, who was far away, was also shocked. But soon, he understood that Lord Fazhen was injured because of him. He was already affected by Su Yun's great exquisite technique, and Su Yun could see through his thoughts. When Su Yun used himself as bait to block Lord Fazhen's attack, his state of mind was in a mess, especially when he saw that Lord Fazhen was in danger. His calm state was instantly broken, but very quickly, he calmed down because in that split second, he thought that Lord Fazhen might use an escape technique. It was teleportation, and it was precisely his thoughts that allowed Su Yun to prepare in advance. He predicted that the Lord Fazhen might teleport to the location where he would land, so he flew over and made his move in advance. Everything was as Su Yun had expected. Su Yun held the dual moon sword tightly, and with a twist of the hilt, the dual moon sword that was stabbed into the Lord Fazhen's chest twisted. He injected qi, intending to use his own immortal qi to forcefully tear the Lord Fazhen's internal organs. However, Lord Fazhen was still a Lord Fazhen. After taking such an attack from Su Yun, he endured the pain and forcefully activated the technique. He raised the staff in his hand and bellowed. A faint red halo appeared around him. This halo was like a strong and powerful hand, and it forcefully pushed Su Yun out. Su Yun leaped back 100 meters, holding the dual moon sword and staring at Lord Fazhen, only to see that Lord Fazhen had already landed beside Saint War. "Second brother, how are you?" Saint War asked. "I'm fine. The Qi Meridian is damaged and I'm afraid that it will affect my cultivation. Moreover, before the Qi Meridian heals, the time needed to activate the technique will be much longer." Lord Fazhen panted and wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth. "This guy is very fast and they have a lot of people. You should not release any complicated techniques for the time being. Let's break a hole and escape first." Saint War said. "Escape? Big brother, although they have a lot of people, they are all useless. Why should we escape? If we escape, how can we face them in the future? There are close to 1 million immortals here and they are obviously targeting us. We have too many restrictive techniques on our bodies. It's a pity that third brother is not here. If he was here, these techniques would not be able to do anything to us. Our current situation is not optimistic. Let's not fight them head-on. Let's retreat first." Saint War said seriously. "Retreat?" Lord Fazhen was unwilling, but since his big brother had already spoken, what else could he say? He nodded his head and the two of them rushed towards the southwest corner. That was the place where Xing Bai and the people of Carefree Palace were trapped. It was also the weakest part of the encirclement. Seeing the two of them rushing towards him like lightning, Xing Bai's heart jumped. However, he knew that he could not retreat. Moreover, he had to defend this place and not let the two of them break through. Since Su Yun had mobilized so many troops, it was obvious that he wanted to completely eliminate the two heroes of the Immortal Court. Carefree array. Xing Bai did not dare to delay and shouted at the people behind him. Yes. The disciples understood and immediately spread out. They set up a formation in the air. 100 people formed the 9 palaces and 8 squares. Each of them held a weapon and activated their immortal qi. It was like a net to block the area. "A bunch of ants," Saint War growled. The surging immortal qi on the long rod in his hand suddenly exploded and turned into a piece of qi. Some of the disciples of the Carefree Palace immediately used the ultimate technique of the Carefree Palace, carefree roaming. Their bodies nimbly dodged the attack, but the qi shards were too dense. They could still dodge in the sparse areas, but there was no way to dodge in the dense areas. After being hit by the qi shards, their bodies instantly disintegrated. Even their souls couldn't escape the remaining power of the qi shards, and they directly shattered and vanished into thin air. When the people of Su Yun's forces saw this, they immediately rushed over with the intention of intercepting them. Don't mess up the formation. Use spells to restrict their abilities and attack in a roundabout way. Su Yun shouted but did not rush forward. The current him was not in the devil saint devil soul state. It had been too short a time since the last time he used the devil saint devil soul state. It was impossible for him to continuously use it in such a short period of time, otherwise, his body would not be able to withstand it. Therefore, he did not dare to fight head-on with the two of them. The reason why he was able to heavily injure the immortal court's Dharma god was because the Dharma god's close combat ability was too weak. However, although Su Yun did not rush forward, he had been eyeing them covetously from the side, posing a great threat to the two of them. Although the two of them wanted to break out of the encirclement, they had no choice but to be on guard against him. He was eyeing them covetously from the side, but it was even more of a headache for the two of them. "Master, we can't go on like this." At this time, Wei Ming flew over and cupped his fist. "What's wrong?" Su Yun frowned. "Master has mobilized so many forces to surround and kill the two heroes of the immortal court. Although everything is going smoothly, the two heroes' methods and strength are too strong. If we do not get rid of them quickly, after a long time, I'm afraid we will attract the reinforcements of the immortal court. At that time, we will be in a stalemate and we will fall into a crisis of eternal damnation," Wei Ming said. Hearing that, Su Yun's heart sank. "Then do you have any plans?" Wei Ming hesitated for a moment, but in the end, he shook his head. Su Yun did have a lot of people on his side, and if he wanted to kill them, he could still kill the immortal court's sacred war and the Lord Protector, but the condition was that he had enough time, and the two of them had to not run away. Just as Su Yun was worrying, a voice suddenly came out from the sword sheath. "Su Yun, with your current methods, it won't be easy to get rid of such a strong expert. The only thing you can do is to continuously weaken them, make them weaker and weaker, and then forcefully seal them into the sword sheath and take them away. You can't stay here for long, otherwise, with so many people, you will definitely attract the immortal court's army." This voice came from Ling Qingyu, who was in the box. "Weaken their strength? How?" Su Yun frowned. "Don't you have the Imperial battle armor? You can fight with them, cooperate with this million-strong army, forcefully exhaust them, and then seal them in the sword sheath and retreat. My initial estimate is that they will be exhausted by you in at most 2 hours. Is it possible in 2 hours?" Su Yun shook his head. "Furthermore, even if I do that, I'm afraid my million-strong army and I will be exhausted, right? At that time, even if I seal them in the sword sheath, they will be able to forcefully break through the void like the immortal court sky sovereign and leave. You don't have to worry about that. I will hold them back," Ling Qingyu said very seriously. "Su Yun, now that things have come to this, you have no other choice," Ling Qingyu urged. Su Yun's mind was in a mess, his thoughts were in an intense battle. After a moment, he finally nodded. "All right, I'll do as you say." There was no other better way. For now, this was the only way. He took a deep breath and immediately gave the order to Wei Ming and the others. In an instant, the million people in the surroundings no longer had any scruples, and all of them stared at the immortal court's Lord Protector. Su Yun knew that he needed to focus his fire, and the immortal court's Lord Protector was his first target. At this moment, he no longer held back. Holding onto the dual moon sword, he rushed towards the immortal court's Lord Protector. Seeing this, the Holy War God and the Lord Protector, who were preparing for the next wave of attacks, tensed up. The Holy War God held onto his rod tightly and turned around to rush towards Su Yun. Die. Both of his arms released a ray of light, like an electric current. It shot towards the long rod. Following his brandishing, the long rod released a bolt of lightning, striking towards Su Yun. Su Yun held onto the sword hilt with one hand and pressed onto the sword blade with the other, blocking the lightning. The Imperial battle robe was completely activated, and the terrifying divine power crazily absorbed the lightning's energy. The lightning knocked him flying 100 meters away. Taking advantage of the situation, the holy war god turned his head and shouted at the Lord Protector, "Second brother." The Lord Protector understood and raised his staff again, shouting angrily, "Dragon subduing thunder!" The head of the staff immediately spat out a terrifying lightning snake with a diameter of nearly 100 meters. With a shocking momentum, the lightning snake swallowed all the immortals in front of it. In an instant, the bodies and souls of these immortals were all turned into ashes. This move forcefully tore a hole in Su Yun's encirclement. Seeing that, the two of them immediately rushed out. Su Yun snorted, he raised his hand, and the sword sheath spat out a large number of flying swords, transforming into iron dragons that chased after the two of them. Chapter 1302. When Xingzhan saw this, he slowed down. "Second brother, you go first. I will hold them back," Xingzhan shouted. Lord Fazhen nodded and continued to move forward. But just as he was moving forward, countless Dharma spells rained down from all directions. He raised his staff again, and a transparent light blue chi shield enveloped his body. When the Dharma spells landed on the chi shield, it shook violently. However, it did not hurt Lord Fazhen at all. Lord Fazhen continued to move forward. However, the surrounding immortals did not stop attacking him. A large number of armored demonic dwellers blocked his way. They seemed to want to use their bodies to stop him. "You're courting death." Lord Fashion's face turned sinister. He activated his Dharma spell again, and a lotus flower floated out from the tip of the staff. The lotus flower spun continuously and spat out a large amount of flames. Anyone who came into contact with the flames would immediately be burned to death. Even if there were water-type Dharma spells aimed at the fire lotus, it would be like a moth flying into a flame. With the fire lotus leading the way, Lord Fazhen had an easier time. But at this moment, a figure appeared in front of him and stared straight into his eyes. Lord Fazhen was slightly stunned. He was not familiar with the middle-aged man who had suddenly appeared. However, when the man's eyes flashed, he had a strange feeling that he was being seen through by the man. Immediately, he guessed what spell the man had cast. Exquisite technique. It seems like the people from Exquisite Palace are also involved in the rebellion. Lord Fazhen was shocked and angry. He wanted to close his eyes, but it was too late. Wei Ming's eyes were like black holes and he had seen through everything. He raised his hand and shouted at the fire lotus, "Blast it with fire!" Yes. The surrounding immortals immediately activated their fire Dharma spells and attacked the fire lotus. Initially, the fire lotus did not have any reaction. However, as time went by, the speed of the fire lotus began to slow down and it began to tremble slightly. Everyone was overjoyed and immediately activated their Dharma spells again. A large number of spells bombarded the fire lotus, and it was soon unable to withstand it and was abruptly smashed into fragments. Very good. Wei Ming and Xing Bai rejoiced inwardly. Seeing this, the demons with powerful physiques once again charged forward fearlessly. When the immortals saw this, they were secretly impressed. If they were in Lord Fashion's shoes, they would definitely not rush forward. Even though Lord Fazhen was injured, there was still a huge gap between them and Lord Fazhen. If they fought against him, they would definitely die. However, these demons were different. There seemed to be an obsession in their hearts that could never be dispelled. They forcefully rushed forward. Lord Fazhen prepared his attack again. However, even if he was extremely powerful and killed dozens of demon dwellers, it was still ineffective. These demon dwellers were like locusts. After dying, they would pounce on him again and again. There was no end to it. Damn it! Lord Fazhen was infuriated and his face looked ferocious. He was not afraid of these ants. It was extremely difficult for them to hurt him. However, there were simply too many of them, and he was extremely annoyed. Out of nowhere, He took out a bronze mirror from his left hand and threw it high up in the air. He quickly recited an incantation, and the frame of the mirror immediately cracked. The mirror itself turned pitch black and continued to expand like a black hole. When the black hole stopped expanding, it was already 3 meters in diameter. A suction force emerged from it and pulled the surrounding immortals and demons. Their cultivation was not high and they were forcibly pulled into the black hole. Be careful. Don't go near the mirror. Use your strength to increase your weight. Don't get sucked in. If you get sucked in, you won't be able to get out. Wei Ming shouted loudly. Everyone immediately followed his instructions, and the number of people sucked into the black hole decreased. Lord Fazhen continued to move forward. None of the demons that blocked his way could escape. They were all sucked into the black hole. As Lord Fazhen moved forward, the black hole also moved forward. There seemed to be a unique suction force around his body that sucked anyone near him into it. Soon, a wave of long-range Dharma spells blasted over. But this time, Lord Fazhen did not even bother activating his chi cover. Facing the rain of spells, he did not even look at them and continued to move forward. When the spells were about to reach Lord Fazhen, they suddenly changed direction and entered the black hole one by one. Even immortal techniques could be absorbed. What kind of terrifying magic treasure was this? Although they were surrounded by Su Yun's people, but at the moment there were so many of them who were helpless against this injured mage. It was truly making them anxious. Master Wei Ming, what should we do now? We can't stop him, and the magic treasure is useless against him. What should we do? If we let him escape, how are we going to explain this to the Lord? Xing Bai anxiously asked Wei Ming. Wei Ming did not say anything, he only looked towards Su Yun. At the moment, Su Yun was fighting with the Holy War. Of course, he was not fighting alone. The Holy War was the leader of the 3 heroes, the strongest existence of the 3 heroes, a famous expert in the immortal court. If Su Yun did not urge the Devil Saint Devil Soul, he would not be his match at all. However, while fighting with the Holy War, there was another person who was cooperating with him. It was a sturdy man wearing a mask. Nameless. This former Golden Armor Force Saint had been sent by Su Yun to carry out some extremely difficult missions recently, and this time, he had finally followed Su Yun to take action. The Golden Armored Force Saint's resistance to attacks was very strong. After following Su Yun still displayed his specialty and gave him a large number of pills and magic treasure that increased the strength of his body to help him refine his body. Although Nameless' lethality was not strong, his current ability to resist attacks was even comparable to Su Yun, who was wearing the Imperial Battle Robe. The Holy War also knew that the biggest threat was Su Yun, but Su Yun had always been using the Imperial Sword technique to attack, and it was extremely difficult for him to get close to him, while the masked fellow was clinging onto him without any regard for his life, causing him to become powerless. What made the Holy War even more distracted was that the Spirit Lord behind him was also being restrained, causing him to be absent-minded while fighting with Su Yun. The Sky Sovereign was already dead. He did not want the Spirit Lord to die here. Whiz! Suddenly, a cold light appeared in front of him. The Holy War's heart trembled as he anxiously retreated, but at this moment, he was punched from behind. It was Nameless. Unknowingly, he had circled around to the back of the Holy War and blocked his path of retreat. The Holy War widened his eyes as he looked at the Twin Moon's sword that was piercing towards him. Su Yun had actually attacked him while he was in a momentary daze. Such recklessness, such decisiveness. The Holy War did not dare to be careless. In a moment of desperation, he immediately activated the magic treasure and rubbed the ring on his finger. The ring immediately shattered into pieces and quickly grew in size, sticking onto his body. In the blink of an eye, it had transformed into a steel cocoon, completely protecting him. Su Yun's sword pierced into the cocoon, but was unable to penetrate even a little. It was too hard. Su Yun retracted his sword and gave Nameless a look. Nameless also retreated. However, the two of them did not wait for the holy war to put away the steel cocoon. Instead, they leaped over him without hesitation and rushed towards the Spirit Lord behind them. Actually, from start to finish, the Spirit Lord was the one Su Yun was most concerned about. Master, the magic treasure above his head is connected to the heart protection mirror on his chest. If we can shatter that heart protection mirror, he will collapse on his own. Seeing Su Yun rushing over, Wei Ming immediately shouted. Hearing that, Su Yun's eyes congealed and immediately rushed towards the Spirit Lord. However, the Spirit Lord was not afraid. Instead, he laughed coldly. Good timing. I want to see how arrogant you can be. With that, he accumulated his immortal chi and the suction force of the black hole became even stronger. Just as Su Yun approached the Spirit Lord, his speed slowed down and his body started to sway. The closer he got to the Spirit Lord, the more violently he swayed, as though he could be sucked into the black hole at any time. Xingbai, Wei Ming and the rest who were watching outside all broke out in cold sweat. Su Yun was too reckless, wasn't he? He did not think of a way to break his heart protection mirror and actually rushed over. At that moment, Su Yun was still more than 10 meters away from the Spirit Lord. At this distance, the sword would not be able to hurt him, but the current Su Yun seemed as though he could be sucked into the black hole at any time. The Spirit Lord turned his head and looked at Su Yun, who was trembling non-stop, as though he was trying his best to stabilize his body. A smile appeared on his face. If you are sucked in by my magic treasure, you will be sealed in this magic treasure forever and will never be able to come out again. At this point, the Spirit Lord stopped moving forward and directly injected all his strength into the heart protection mirror connected to the black hole. The suction force of the black hole increased by a few notches. Su Yun's body swayed a few meters closer to the black hole. At this moment, he was only less than 5 meters away from the black hole. If he swayed any more, he would definitely fall into it. However, Su Yun was not anxious at all. There was not even the slightest bit of nervousness on his face. Sucked in by this magic treasure? He snorted lightly. I'm afraid that won't happen. The Spirit Lord was stunned. He did not understand why Su Yun was so confident. However, in the next second, Su Yun suddenly reached out and grabbed the sword sheath behind him. With all his might, he threw it towards the Spirit Lord. Whiz! The sword sheath flew in a straight line. Su Yun threw it with so much strength that he did not stabilize himself. When the sword sheath flew out, he also lost his balance and flew towards the black hole. The Spirit Lord was stunned. Before he could react, the sword sheath closed in on him. He only saw the sword sheath emit a bright light, and he was immediately engulfed by the light. He disappeared. The moment the Spirit Lord disappeared, the black hole also disappeared. Su Yun was almost swallowed by the black hole. However, he had already calculated the distance. Taking advantage of this time, he directly rushed into the sword sheath and entered it. Second brother. The Spirit Lord was anxious. He immediately shook off the people around him and rushed towards the sword sheath. However, the moment Su Yun disappeared, the sword sheath was grabbed by Wei Ming and retreated. Moreover, the masked Wu Ming stood in front of the Spirit Lord and blocked his movements. The army was still surging like a tide. Chapter 1303. With a flash of light, Su Yun directly rushed into the world of the sword sheath, and the Lord Fazhen, who had entered the world of the sword sheath before him, had yet to stabilize his body, or rather, he had yet to react to what magic treasure he had been struck by. It was only when Su Yun appeared that he understood his current situation. Is this your magic tool world? The Lord Fazhen held onto his staff, distancing himself from Su Yun, and asked loudly. That's right. Su Yun's face was cold. he suddenly raised the two moons, and saw countless divine swords coming from all directions in the sky. These divine swords had a strong sword intent. The sword chi was oppressive. They were like spirits, rushing towards the Lord Protector. The Lord Fazhen activated his chi shield once again, and the flying sword pierced into the chi shield, causing it to deform. The Lord Fazhen felt an unprecedented pressure. He clenched his teeth and continuously activated his immortal chi to support the chi shield. Su Yun did the same, but although Su Yun's cultivation was not comparable to the Lord Fazhen, during the battle with the Holy War, Su Yun had absorbed a lot of immortal chi through the imperial battle robe, and was still full of energy. On the other hand, the Lord Fazhen was exhausted by the army. With Su Yun restraining him, the Lord Fazhen was unable to escape, and could only choose to fight. He waved his staff again, and as he waved his staff, the Lord Fashion's body erupted with an extremely terrifying halo of light. After the halo of light formed, it actually condensed into arrows of light that shot out in all directions. For a moment, tens of thousands of arrows shot out at the same time, and the scene was extremely spectacular. Clang, 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 clang. The flying swords that were flying towards the Lord Fazhen were struck by the arrows of light, and even the immortal chi on the swords were scattered. Su Yun snorted. He raised his sword and rushed towards the Lord Fazhen. The Lord Fazhen was indeed very powerful. With a wave of his staff, it was enough to turn an army of 10,000 into ashes. Previously, when he was holding him back, in less than half an incense stick of time, Su Yun had already lost nearly 100,000 people to his staff. Such a terrifying destructive power was something that Su Yun did not expect. It was as though even existences with lower cultivation than him would be killed in a single move, without any leeway. However, the Spirit Lord also had a weakness, and that was that he could not get close to him. His immortal techniques were indeed powerful, but his close combat abilities were too weak. When Su Yun rushed over, the Spirit Lord almost subconsciously used teleportation again, but just as he finished teleporting, Su Yun opened his eyes, and before he could stabilize himself, he activated the great exquisite technique again. However, the Lord Fazhen seemed to be on guard as he opened his eyes wide. However, unlike Su Yun, his eyes turned blue. Illusion? Su Yun was secretly shocked. Lord Fashion's move had actually neutralized his great exquisite technique. However, Su Yun was proficient in many illusion techniques, especially the yin-yang illusion art. His own mental strength was not weak, so he was not afraid of the Lord Fashion's illusion technique. The Spirit Lord seemed to understand that he was relying on this to control Su Yun and directly activated the technique. He leaped up and flew to an extremely high place, raising the staff above his head. Around his body, a circle of gaseous flames appeared. These gaseous flames were colorful, some were like water, some were like fire, and on top of his staff there were 5 different colored light balls. The light balls were spinning quickly, and the terrifying destructive power that overflowed from the ball directly invaded over. Seeing that, Su Yun frowned. However, the Spirit Lord suddenly shouted, "Fun Tian!" Crash! The sky of the sword sheath's world suddenly became blazing hot. The sky seemed to have been burned by fire. A layer of strange color was ignited. Following that, a large amount of flames descended from the sky, directly smashing towards Su Yun like a torrential rain. Every flame seemed to be able to completely melt the ground. The temperature was extremely high. However, when the flames landed on Su Yun's body, they quickly disappeared. It was as if there was a layer of qi on the surface of his body that could extinguish any flames. No matter how dense the flames were, they were unable to touch his body. Seeing that, the Spirit Lord frowned, but he was not discouraged. He roared again, "Burial Earth!" With that said, the surrounding immortal qi suddenly became restless. A large number of halos of light appeared around Su Yun's body. These halos of light spat out countless boulders, and along with the boulders, there was also a flood of thick soil. Su Yun still stood in his original position, not moving at all. The sand came crashing over, but when it got close to him, it disappeared. What? The Spirit Lord's eyes widened in disbelief. Against the water! Gold. Boom wood. The Spirit Lord continued to activate his technique, using all 5 elements techniques, and every single one of them was earth-shattering, enough to shake mountains and rivers, but all of this had no effect on Su Yun. He was like a boulder that could never be broken, or rather, he could not be touched at all. The Spirit Lord was not an idiot. How could he not know at this time? Su Yun must have an incredible magic treasure on him. It was just that, he thought that the magic treasure needed Su Yun's own immortal chi to maintain, and after attacking for a long time, the effect of the magic treasure would definitely weaken, but after so many attacks, Su Yun was still safe and sound, not even panting. It was really unbelievable. One of the 3 heroes of the Immortal Court, the Spirit Lord, only has this much ability? The corner of Su Yun's mouth raised, revealing a mocking expression. You really disappoint me. You. The Spirit Lord was furious. He could not hold it in anymore. Suddenly, a ball of scorching flame spewed out from his body, burning the sky, and his staff also started to burn, turning his entire body bright red. The staff actually melted, slowly flowing towards his finger, converging on his index finger, turning into a golden ring. You have successfully angered me. Good. Very good. Since that's the case, I will use my strongest move, and personally send you off. The Spirit Lord's expression became unprecedentedly focused, and his aura became even more terrifying. Su Yun had never seen such a terrifying immortal chi. His body was like a warehouse that stored endless immortal chi. At this moment, all of it was released, as if it could fill up the entire heaven and earth. The Spirit Lord closed his eyes. His hands began to dance, and the ring on his index finger also released a 7-colored light. It was especially dazzling. Su Yun did not attack the Spirit Lord, but stood at the side, quietly watching him use this terrifying immortal technique. Su Yun did not attack, nor did he stop him from casting the technique. This made the Spirit Lord a little puzzled. In fact, he was also secretly guarding against Su Yun's attack. When he was accumulating this move, he also secretly stored a small binding spell, waiting for Su Yun to come over. However, he did not move forward, he just stood by the side and watched. Is he confident that he can take this move of mine? The Spirit Lord did not believe it. However, he believed that Su Yun had other methods, but things had already come to this. There was no other choice. The Spirit Lord could only fight. He growled, a large number of fiery red lines crawling on his skin. These lines were like poisonous snakes, flickering with a strange red light. Following the continuous movement of his hands, they gathered in front of him, forming a huge energy ball. The energy ball became bigger and bigger, more and more surging. The power contained within was also very strange. There was the meaning of ice, there was also the meaning of fire that could melt the world, there was also the meaning of wind that could cut off hair, there was also the meaning of poison that could kill upon contact. Its power was extremely strange, but when gathered together, it formed a type of primal chaos energy that even Su Yun had never seen before. This power was shockingly huge. Su Yun believed that even the Immortal Court's chief, who was at the peak of the world, would be seriously injured if he was hit by this attack. The cultivation of the Immortal Court's Spirit Lord was indeed only at the peak of the Spirit Profound God realm, but his destructive power had already far exceeded the peak of the Spirit Profound God realm. Su Yun could not help but worry. If this attack was really released, would it affect the sword sheath? The energy ball was still growing, its current size was already bigger than a house. Stop him? Or continue? If he stopped him, would he be able to successfully stop him? If he continued, would the sword sheath be able to withstand it? Su Yun's heart was also conflicted. However, there was one thing that was without a doubt. After this move, the Spirit Lord's strength would definitely drop to a critical point, and he would definitely not have the strength to contend with Su Yun anymore. What? The energy ball was still expanding. It was already like a small mountain, extremely terrifying. Su Yun, who was 1,000 meters away, could already feel the surging destructive power emitted from the energy ball. However, the Spirit Lord did not seem to have stopped. He was still accumulating qi, his face was filled with malevolence, and the madness in his eyes was extremely obvious. It's not over yet? Su Yun looked at the energy ball that was still expanding, and felt a headache coming on. After this attack, he doesn't have much strength left. Su Yun, you don't have to worry. When he is about to make his move, you can just leave the sword sheath. Just as Su Yun was at his wit's end, a graceful voice suddenly came from the side. Su Yun looked towards the source of the voice, only to see Ling Qinyu, who had been moving erratically, had unknowingly appeared beside him. Qinyu, although I can leave in time, if I do as you say, will the sword sheath be able to withstand it? Su Yun shook his head. The Spirit Lord of the Immortal Court is indeed worthy of being called the Spirit Lord of the Immortal Court. The destructive power of his attack is almost comparable to that of the Immortal Court. The sword sheath is not as weak as you think. After all, this is the place where the evil sword is sealed. If you are not even afraid of the sword qi of the evil sword, why would you be afraid of such a small trick? Ling Qinyu smiled slightly. Furthermore, the situation outside is not optimistic. Why are you wasting so much time here? It's better to leave quickly. Ling Qinyu's words made Su Yun hesitate for a moment, but as matters stood, he had no other choice, so he nodded and prepared to leave the sword sheath. Finally, the Spirit Lord of the Immortal Court's gigantic energy ball was formed. Su Yun was almost unable to describe how big it was. It was probably more than the size of a mountain. He raised his hands up high, grabbed the gigantic ball, and then fiercely threw it downwards. Die! He roared. The gigantic ball pressed down. The power was comparable to the collapse of the sky. Qinyu, be careful, Su Yun said anxiously. Don't worry about me, you go first. Ling Qinyu shouted, and then her figure disappeared. Seeing that, Su Yun immediately opened up the void and rushed out of the sword sheath. The gigantic energy ball that had consumed a lot of the Spirit Lord's energy directly smashed into thin air. Chapter 1304. The huge energy ball exploded and blasted out a cross-shaped energy shockwave. The surrounding sword discourse arena was blown away, but it was not damaged at all. The Immortal Court's Dharma God stared at the energy ball. He believed that Su Yun would not be able to survive this attack. The violent shockwave spread out in all directions. This attack was enough to shake the entire continent and split half of the sky. No immortal could survive such an attack. However, just as Lord Fa Zhen was staring at the center of the explosion, a magical phenomenon suddenly occurred. The destructive aura that was still spreading out was suddenly sucked in by a whirlpool. It directly shrank towards the center like a receding tide. Not long after, the entire sword sheath returned to peace, and there was no longer any destructive aura drifting out. Lord Fashion's eyes widened as he looked at this strange scene. He could not believe what he was seeing. What was going on? How could this be? His heart was pounding and there was a sense of fear in him. This strike that he had made a solemn vow, this strike that was filled with his entire body's strength, why did it suddenly vanish into thin air? Lord Fa Zhen looked and saw a figure appearing at the end of the energy that was sucked away. It's that guy? Is he not dead yet? Lord Fa Zhen frowned and his face became ugly. However, when he took a closer look, he realized that he had seen wrongly. The person was not Su Yun but a beautiful woman. What's going on? Lord Fa Zhen did not understand. He did not see this woman before. When did she appear? Furthermore, could it be that she was the one who swallowed the energy of his spell just now? At this moment, the woman was looking at Lord Fa Zhen. Lord Fozhen could not help but tremble. An inexplicable palpitation made him tremble. Although the woman's aura was not strong and he could ignore it, he did not know why he felt a sense of fear. This feeling was not even given to him by Su Yun. Who was this woman? He hesitated for a while and finally mustered up his courage. He shouted, "Who are you? Are you willing to do something for me?" At this moment the woman's voice came out. Her voice was gentle and pleasant to listen to. "Something? What is it?" Lord Fozhen asked suspiciously. "I'm only asking you, are you willing or not?" The woman spoke again, but this time her voice was ice-cold. "If you're willing, I won't kill you." "Kill me!" Lord Fozhen felt that he had been greatly insulted and he was enraged. The strange feeling in his heart disappeared without a trace, and he immediately rushed towards the woman. "I'd like to see if you have the ability to kill me." He exited the sword sheath. The surroundings were in chaos. Everyone was surrounding a gigantic figure, and they were fighting crazily. Su Yun looked over, only to see that the holy war had used some unknown technique, causing his body to become extremely huge. He was at least 1,000 meters tall, and in front of him, he was like an ant. The gold armor for Saint's entire body was covered with rod scars. He had not fought with the holy war for a long time. After Su Yun entered the sword sheath, he faced the holy war alone. It could be said that he could only take a beating and was unable to retaliate. His body was indeed very strong, but against an expert like the holy war, it was nothing. Xing Bai and Wei Ming led the army to continue attacking the holy war, while the holy war brandished his rod, sweeping it left and right. The gigantic rod was like a divine dragon. With a sweep, Su Yun's side was immediately thrown into a complete mess, completely defeated. Nearly 1,000,000 people were fighting against 2 people, but it had turned into such a situation. It had to be said that the Holy War and the Lord Fozhen were worthy of being called the 3 heroes of the immortal court. Su Yun looked at the messy battlefield and shouted, "Wei Ming, Xing Bai, quickly retreat with the army." Although Su Yun had a lot of people on his side, rushing up to fight was just sending them to their deaths. It was better to form a formation and restrain them from afar. Fighting like a trapped beast was far better than swarming forward. Lord Xing Bai and Wei Ming did not know what he meant. But Su Yun's face was serious and did not explain. He did not look like he was joking, so how could they dare to disobey? They immediately summoned the people who were fighting with the holy war and retreated. Su Yun, on the other hand, raised the dual moon sword and headed towards the holy war. The holy war swept a few rounds and realized that the thieves that were like locusts did not charge forward again. He frowned and turned his huge body to look, only to see that the person who had disappeared from the sword sheath had appeared in front of him again. However, the Lord Fozhen had disappeared. Demonic barrier! Where's my second brother? The holy war roared. Your second brother is in my hands. If you are willing to surrender, I can spare your second brother's life. Su Yun shouted. Spare? Do you think I will believe you, devil cultivator? The holy war was enraged. His eyes suddenly spewed out flames. He raised his rod and smashed it towards Su Yun. Su Yun had thought that the Lord Fozhen would be able to restrain the holy war, but he was wrong. Although the holy war was brave, his intelligence was not low. Immediately, Su Yun's body flashed and dodged, then raised the sharp dual moon sword and rushed towards the holy war's body. Unbreakable Vajra! Xingzhan roared in a deep voice. Suddenly, a golden light flashed across his body. When the twin moon swords smashed on his body, a bang was heard. It was as if the swords had hit a steel plate. They couldn't move even an inch further. Distortion divine power! At this time, the holy war roared again. The killing intent rippled. Su Yun felt his entire body turn cold. An indescribable sense of unease assaulted his heart. He immediately leaped back, pulling apart the distance, only to see the space around the holy war suddenly distort. The huge distortion force field was extremely terrifying. Even the spells that were smashing towards him were torn apart by the distortion force field. After the distortion force field was formed, it did not immediately disappear. Instead, it seemed to have turned into a protective barrier that surrounded the gigantic body of the holy war. Although his body had multiplied, his speed did not slow down and was still extremely agile. When Su Yun leaped back to dodge, he instantly dodged, without any feeling of sluggishness. The terrifying distorted space once again rippled over. Although Su Yun's speed was also very fast, it could not compare to the holy war. He was instantly engulfed by the distortion force field, and the feeling of being torn apart instantly spread throughout his entire body. He felt as if his body was being pulled by countless strong and powerful hands. It was extremely painful, and the divine power of the imperial battle robe was also decreasing at an astonishing speed. Crap! If this continued, in less than 5 breaths of time, the imperial battle robe would be torn apart by this divine power. Su Yun anxiously activated his immortal power to retreat. However, the holy war did not give him the slightest chance, and continued to follow him closely. In this kind of difficult environment, even if Su Yun pushed the absorption power of the imperial battle robe to the maximum, he would not be able to escape. If this continued, he would definitely be torn apart by 5 horses and his soul would shatter. He could not delay any longer. Su Yun clenched his teeth. He stared at the gigantic creature in front of him, and the holy war's eyes that were burning with flames, and activated the sword sheath once again. Crash! The sword sheath released a white light, causing the holy war to frown. Before he could react, his entire body was swallowed by the sword sheath and disappeared. The force field that was wrapped around Su Yun instantly disappeared, and he could be considered to have been freed. Seeing that the holy war had disappeared, the surrounding Su Yun's army immediately stopped their attacks. Master! Xing Bai anxiously flew over, looked at Su Yun up and down, and immediately asked, "Master, are you all right?" "I'm fine." "What about the holy war people?" "I've temporarily trapped him, but I won't be able to trap him for long," Su Yun said. "I'll immediately arrange for someone to set up the array," Xing Bai said. Su Yun nodded. But just then, Wei Ming rushed over again, with an anxious look on his face. He landed beside Su Yun and shouted impatiently, "Master, something bad has happened. The Immortal Court has an army of nearly 1,000,000, and they are heading this way." Obviously, they have already received the news from this place. Nearly 1,000,000. Su Yun's face turned ugly. Although he had a lot of people, but in terms of individual strength, he was definitely not able to fight against the Immortal Court. It was just that Su Yun never thought that the Immortal Court would actually send 1,000,000 soldiers to attack him. Back then, when he was fighting the Nether Demon Realm, he did not see the Immortal Court sending 1,000,000 soldiers, and most of the fighting strength was gathered from the other immortal sections. He himself only had a few 100,000 people, but he never thought that they would actually send so many this time. From the looks of it, the Immortal Court had always been hiding their own strength, and was purposely exhausting the strength of the immortal sections. Don't worry, the Immortal Court has a lot of people, and I believe that their speed of advance will not be very fast. Immediately retreat, Xing Bai, you are in charge of cleaning up the battlefield, and disguising the battlefield. Understand? Su Yun said. Disguising the battlefield? Xing Bai was startled. Since the Holy War and the Lord Fazhen are not far from you, if you just stand by and watch, how can you not arouse the suspicion of the Immortal Court? This subordinate understands. Xing Bai had a look of understanding. Su Yun wanted him to pretend that he had participated in the battle to help the Holy War and the Lord Fazhen. There's not much time, hurry up and move. Wei Ming, take this sword sheath and fly to a place where there is no one. If the Lord Fazhen and the Holy War fly out of the sword sheath, it will be difficult. Su Yun said, then immediately turned and rushed into the sword sheath. Wei Ming and Xing Bai looked at each other and immediately split up. After rushing into the sword sheath, before Su Yun could even react, he was struck in the back by a huge rod, and his entire body suddenly fell down. Bang! Su Yun smashed onto a sword platform below. He was confused. He tried his best to stand up, only to see the holy war not far away, supporting a person and glaring at Su Yun. And that person was the Lord Fazhen. Su Yun looked at the Lord Fazhen, only to see that the Lord Fazhen seemed to have fainted. His eyes were closed, and his entire body was powerless. He was completely different from the furious state Su Yun was in when he went out. What? He was exhausted from using an immortal technique? Su Yun did not understand. Su Yun, what's wrong? Why does this holy war need so much energy? Just then, Ling Qingyu quietly landed beside Su Yun. He doesn't look like the Lord Fazhen. His strength far surpasses the other two. Su Yun shook his head and sighed. Actually, I don't have much strength now. It is really difficult to deal with the holy war. If he were to panic at this time, he would probably turn into meat paste in the next second. After the devil bone spirit appeared, Su Yun gave it a portion of its qi. Although its current destructive power was not that great to Su Yun, at this critical moment, it was still of some use. It drove its huge body, stepped on the sword discourse arena, and directly rushed towards the holy war. Its astonishing body gave off an indescribable feeling of grandeur. The holy war saint widened his eyes as he looked at the giant, only to see a fist flying towards him. He could dodge, but once he moved, the attack of the clone would immediately weaken by a lot. He could see Su Yun's condition. If he continued to persevere for a while longer, he would definitely be able to beat Su Yun to death. However, in this split second, there was no time for him to think. The devil bone spirit's mountain-like fist had already smashed over. Although the destructive power was not great, it still sent the holy war saint flying. His body was like a kite with its string cut as it flew forward for a distance of 10,000 meters before finally landing on a sword discourse arena. The attacks of the 7 clones were indeed much weaker. Su Yun took advantage of the situation and retracted the devil bone spirit. Taking a deep breath, he directly knocked away one of the clones and rushed out of the encirclement. Seeing that, the holy war saint immediately activated his technique again, controlling his clone to chase after Su Yun. However, Su Yun did not escape, but instead rushed towards him. The sharp double moon sword was like a shooting star in the sky. This was a desperate attack. The holy war saint did not dodge. He continued to control his clone and stared at Su Yun, who was rushing over. He could tell that this person was already at the end of his rope. Although this attack would injure him, he was confident that he could kill Su Yun after this attack. He's simply arrogant and conceited. The holy war saint snorted and released his qi. The 7 clones flickered with a brilliant golden light, as though they were gods. Su Yun clenched his teeth. His eyes were red, the muscles on his arms were swollen. All of the qi he could use was gathered on the double moon sword. The cold sword's edge released a cold moon-like halo. It was cold and sharp. Even just a glance at it would cause one's heart to tremble in fear, their soul to tremble. A confrontation between the golden light and the cold light. Close. Very close. Su Yun could already feel the power of the holy war. The holy war saint could already feel the sharp sword qi around Su Yun. The killing intent of both sides had already interweaved, colliding with each other, squeezing each other, opposing each other with equal harshness, neither giving in to the other. At this time, it was no longer just a battle of cultivation and realms, it was also a battle of aura and soul. Where one was weak, it would be a disadvantage, and where one was strong, it would also be an advantage. After a breath of time, the two sides were already in front of each other, and they could already feel each other's breathing. The holy war saint did not dodge. Su Yun did not dodge either. Finally, Puchi. The sound of the sword chi tearing through flesh could be heard. The holy war saint's chest was pierced through. At the same time, the 7 clones also leaped over, the 7 golden rods that were enough to destroy the heavens and earth fiercely smashed towards Su Yun's head. The air was completely messed up by the 7 rods. Although the holy war saint's chest was pierced through, he did not seem to feel any pain. Instead, the corner of his mouth raised into a smile as he muttered, "It's over." Su Yun's face tensed up. He immediately wanted to activate the remaining immortal chi and tear him apart from the inside of the holy war saint's body, but the moment he activated his chi, killing intent surged over from behind him. No. There was not enough time. His heart trembled. Although he was unwilling, he still decisively let go of the sword hilt and planned to dodge. However, in a split second, the holy war saint suddenly extended his hand and grabbed onto his arms, preventing him from escaping. Crap! Su Yun cried out in his heart. His heart turned cold. It's really over? The pressure of the rod had already begun to press against his head. These 7 rods probably didn't even need to hit his head to crush it. I was too careless. In the end, he was still too careless. He thought that by hitting the holy war, he would be able to disturb the holy war's clone, but he didn't expect that he would not be affected in the slightest. I've lost. Su Yun closed his mind's eye. Dong! At this moment, an explosion that was enough to shatter eardrums and shake the soul suddenly sounded out. Su Yun was startled. The explosion seemed to have bloomed right beside his ears, causing his ears to buzz. Following that, a mysterious chi wrapped around his body, and in the blink of an eye, he felt as if his entire body had been emptied. The pressure from the holy war instantly disappeared, and the killing intent and baleful aura also disappeared in that instant. What happened? Su Yun's heart trembled. This sudden change made his sharp senses completely unable to adapt to it. However, when he looked at the holy war in front of him, the scene in front of him completely shocked him. At this moment there was a huge hole in the holy war's chest. It was completely pierced through, and his entire body was covered in blood marks. All of the chi meridian were shattered. The immortal chi that supported the clone was immediately cut off, and the clone disappeared. The holy war stood in place, maintaining his posture of forming a hand seal, but the life force in his body was quickly disappearing. I believe that you would definitely acknowledge me as your master, and want me to teach you, and you would not have any scruples in doing anything, and would not fight anymore, because you knew that I would be your backing, and like this, it would only affect you. Cultivation is one step at a time, and I also hope that you can walk step by step, so I chose to hide it from you. And now that you have become stronger, you can accept and even bear all of this, so, I will tell you, but now is not the right time. I cannot tell you everything. Please forgive me for continuing to hide it from you. Su Qing, and I have known each other for a period of time. No matter what, I will save her. If you feel worried, you can bring her away, but I can warn you very seriously, if she leaves the sword sheath, in less than 3 days, she will die without a doubt. Qing Yu, I believe you. Su Yun took a deep breath and closed his eyes. He understood Ling Qing Yu's words, although he was still a little shocked, but after experiencing so many things over the years, his mind had become more mature. Let's do as you say then. Ling Qing Yu nodded, but did not say a word. Su Yun stood on top of the gigantic emperor sword, watching the gigantic sword body close again. He could not help but reach out and touch the sword. Then, how long will it take for Qing to recover to her normal state? I reckon that within 5 years, she should be able to completely fuse with her power and recover. Of course, if the sword chi of the evil sword is released even more, her recovery time will be shortened. I can wait for 5 years, but the seal on the evil sword cannot be loosened. Su Yun looked into the distance. Behind the countless sword discourse arena, the huge and hazy sword shadow entered his line of sight. Su Yun stared at the sword shadow for a while, and was slightly lost in thought. After about 10 breaths of time, he turned and said to Ling Qingyu, "All right, Qingyu, I'll leave everything here to you. If anything happens to Qing you must inform me." "Yes, go and do your work. There are still a lot of things for you to take care of outside." "Yes." Su Yun nodded. Carrying the Lord Fashion's body, he rushed out of the sword sheath. After Su Yun left, Ling Qingyu was still looking at the place he left in for a long time. After an unknown period of time, her body suddenly turned into a ray of black light and rushed towards the gigantic sword shadow in the distance.